This is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready. We're about to live in your head rent-free.
Hello, Otterites. This is episode 215. I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
And I'm Marcus.
And I'm Cajun.
Out in the wilds of Nelson County.
Yes,
calling in.
yes.
Frozen tundra of Nelson County.
The amazing
Arctic temperature.
Arctic temperatures. Arctic temperatures have frozen Cajun out in the Holy Land. But the rest of us are gathered here at Studio M. Very excited.
It's warm inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, warm and toasty.
2 degrees outside, but in a negative 10 wind chill. But
so
here we are.
The rest of the fellas braved the 2 degrees and made it over. But it's just the Holy Land is not built for this kind of weather.
Well, the problem is not so much that, because it's not like they don't have the vehicles to get around in it, but fewer cars means slushier stuff that freezes over.
Yeah. And the
Black
twisty
ice
roads
is a big
are
issue,
woo doggies.
Yeah.
So I don't envy Cajun on that twisty road he lives on. So
it used to be when it got cold. Not occasionally, I'll still do this, but when I was in college and a lot cockier, what I would say when it got cold is, "Man, we used to go swimming in weather like this back in Michigan."
Yes. I was considering that Michigan.
But
I was sure that would come up somehow. Yes.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I used to. As I was getting out of the car, I thought about throwing that at Martin, and then I realized, screw that. The reason people from Michigan don't want to go out in weather like this is because we're too smart to go out in weather like this.
Okay. That's
we've got the experience to say, this is too damn cold. We're going to stay home in front of the fire and drink our bourbon. Instead, somebody drags our asses out.
Hey,
well, that's what I basically said. I mean, I'm got a little older and a little wiser now. It ain't worth getting out on the roads in the shape they're in, even if I was get 10 miles out and they clear up good. It's just
exactly.
And technology's doing the heavy lifting here, because we've got this is the first time we've ever been able to use that function on the task cam where we can go call in and plug it in.
Yeah.
And kudos to Robert and to the Imperator here for making all that work. But sounds good.
I've found all kinds of nifty things on this and adaptations and
so using this, we could theoretically have an unlimited number of callers, because as long as we have a group call, which you can do, like if we did FaceTime instead of
you can do FaceTime if you've got the
Right.
computer. You just it goes straight in.
So even though there are 4 hard mic
Yes.
inputs, which are fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're great.
As you can hear, yeah.
We've been doing the splitter with the
with the booster for me.
Splitter.
The preamp.
I'm sorry, I couldn't let that one pass.
Just in house, we can handle at least 6, and we could probably do 10 in total with splitters.
right. Well, we have done 6.
We have done 6.
We have, yeah.
Live in person.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, and then we've got the the capability through a computer or through your phone for Zoom or whatever else.
Yeah,
And-
you could absolutely feed a
We
full meeting.
Always working to make it
Team,
better for you
Zoom,
listeners.
whatever. You could
Oh, yeah.
you could feed right in
mhm.
and have like you said, unlimited participants essentially.
Oh yeah.
right, exactly.
No, this thing has been.
So
just
I sense a
spectacular.
Snakes and Otters game show or something in our.
No,
Live from New York, it's Snakes and Otters.
I sense that we need to start approaching some interesting
Yes,
guests. We
absolutely.
had always done no guests.
Oh yeah.
But I think we're at a spot where we could
Oh, the
do
ca-
some interesting guests in
Yeah.
person, or if they prefer by phone.
Well, we definitely need to get Mr. Fonte.
Yes,
on
Bourbon
the show.
Scout.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Bourbon Scout, yes.
Yes, we need to approach Bourbon Scout, and we could even come to him. Apparently, he's got a whole new veranda at his
Yes.
place there. He
Yes.
redid the backyard. It's been on
Although we
Facebook.
really have to work around his schedule. That man is traveling all because
he's
he's
a
an
busy-
ambassador.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
He is,
Which he takes very seriously.
which
yes.
he does. Yes,
He's a busy sumbitch.
yes. And he's there's a program that where you can become a bourbon ambassador. You learn about it, and it's actually a few $100s to go through the program. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing that.
Perhaps
The
that's
one programs I think is like $1,500 a seat.
Well, yeah, that's a little bit different. Yes,
That's the whole week long.
Yeah.
Stave and Thief. You
Yes,
get
Stave
the
and
challenge coin.
Well, that's Stave and Thief makes you, quote unquote, a distiller. if I
No,
remember.
that's a whole other jump up program where
Okay.
yes, they will teach you craft distilling, but the one that they run that's more like for the people in the hospitality business or people that just want to get into it is a little it's
Okay,
like a
I
week
didn't
long.
realize they did both.
Oh yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, he is a employee of the distillery.
Yes.
So he's
Yes.
not just one of these.
Limestone branch.
Oh, it is of limestone. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
So yeah, he is not just one of these guys that's gone out and taken the classes and learned everything. He actually works for them as a paid brand ambassador, and he's very good at it too.
Yeah,
Very
Limestone's-
good.
Yellowstone, one of our favorites.
Absolutely,
It works
limestone's
with,
great.
the
which is-
master distiller is Stephen Beam.
That's
Is
right.
that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, Cajun and I have bottles signed by him.
Yep, that's
Mm-hmm.
right.
And of course, he is a distant relative of Francis.
That is correct. You guys are
Who
never going to.
isn't?
You're going to never let me forget that conversation we had at Bourbon Fest.
That's
I told
awesome.
my wife about that, and she extended to you all the flying finger of friendship. I'll
Oh
just let you
wow.
know that.
Okay. I thought for a second she was going to commiserate with
Oh
us.
no.
No, it was,
She's
it was
waving
awesome.
one finger at a time.
That's right.
So,
One finger at a time.
all right. So anyway, excellent preamble to explain our situation, but I am thrilled to have the fellas, even in 2-degree weather, here at Studio M. It warms my heart to have you here.
Well, I'm glad something's getting warm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my
Now,
friends are here.
Now, I
Yeah,
have to
'cause ain't
ask.
nothing warm out here.
Yeah. See, my thought was, if this were being hosted at my place, wouldn't Martin be getting his butt out on the highway at 2-degree weather?
Yeah.
You would have.
I'm very confident about big streets. It's just the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Mine,
I've got no problem with my entire street, all the way both ends is completely.
That's because all that immoral gambling money.
Yeah, that gambling money does help because
Well,
like my property
Yeah.
taxes are nil.
UPS helps where you live
Yeah,
because they have
not in the
entrances.
not in the subdivision, but yes.
Yes, the main road leading to your subdivision is close to some UPS facilities.
Well, and all the warehousing on National Turnpike and all that. Is,
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's tons and tons of
Yes.
major business.
And-
Cisco's there.
Basically,
you got to have that stuff.
Yeah,
clear.
UPS tells the city and the state, we'll just pack up and move, keep the streets clear
Yeah,
exactly.
because they don't have to be here.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's very advantageous to be here. Louisville and Nashville are the
Yeah,
two.
as long
big
as we don't
hubs.
dick them over.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean
Not
that's the
being
thing.
cheap. Yeah.
They've told keep the streets clear because we have to stay open.
Mhm.
But keeping like the aircraft maintenance here is huge bucks. For
Oh,
the
yeah.
city. So they've got to make UPS happy.
Well,
to
and
keep 'em
there is, not to say that UPS is being a dick about it. Pardon my French.
Oh no, they're just being very
Because
businesslike.
they are. There's also a little bit of give and take there because I don't know if this is still true, but when they first started here, the de-icer that they had for the UPS planes was also used for the commercial aircraft when needed.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were just coming in and dictating terms. There was a little bit of give and take. I'll give them that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean it's just
it's been a good business relationship
yeah.
between the
I
community.
mean it's just
and,
realism. They have to stay open. They have to sort the packages.
That's right.
So
Right.
they told
Well,
the city,
actually, they are getting ready to close a lot of that on February 13th. The day shift is gone. And at night, they are basically almost to the point where the only thing they use humans for is unloading the cans and then loading the cans back up.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything
'cause everything's
else
automated.
is automated.
Yeah, they're,
now
they're, yeah, they're,
with the
it's
sort.
been a slow creep to that area, but and in many labor unions have bemoaned that, not just in this industry, but
Oh, yeah.
all over the place.
But the drivers are still here. That's a big deal.
They still
And
still
they're
have some
highly paid.
drivers,
And
it
they-
is the U.S. hub.
Yeah,
main hub.
it is the main hub, and so
Yeah.
the pilots are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
secondaries are
yeah, and-
Ontario, California, and Philadelphia, PA.
They also have an Alaska area too. A lot of the guys here have transferred up there
Mm-hmm.
at different
Yeah.
points.
But-
One of my brother-in-laws was flight engineer.
Ah,
So I know obviously Rabbit Hole needs to be our
Our
sponsor because
Yes.
I'm going to
We
take
can't-
us down one.
We haven't even got to the subject yet.
Yes, we haven't even announced what it is yet.
I was trying to get there, and then I rabbit holed myself again.
You did. So Francis mentioning Alaska made me think of a meme that the good pastor had made a
Yes.
comment. I don't know if you saw it, Francis, because I know
Not remembering it, but
you both are friends with him on Facebook,
Yeah.
Martin and Francis. I don't know. Are you friends with him on Facebook?
yeah,
You need to look.
Imperator?
Oh yes.
yeah, absolutely
yeah.
is. Yeah, because he often comments.
Oh
yeah.
yes,
Oh,
that's
yes,
true. Yes. Anyways, it's one where he comments on the some people want this, which is U.S. continental
yeah.
U.S. Alaska and Hawaii all in blue. Some people want this, and then it's continental U.S. Alaska and Hawaii all in red. I want this, and then it's continental Alaska with a flag background. And his response was, "So you want to eliminate Hawaii and Alaska?" To which I responded, "Well, yeah. One used to be Russian. We know they're all just a bunch of commie bastards, and the other represents colonial domination of indigenous people. So yeah, both got to go. That way, it satisfies both the left and the right."
Interesting.
Well,
It's yeah.
Okay.
Anything-
On to the
anyways.
topic. On to the topic.
Skip a bit, brother.
I thought it was funnier than that, but
So
all
this
right,
is
fine.
our second in the director series that we're taking on. I don't know if I want to call it a great director series, but interesting directors that mean something to us. And then it's Clint Eastwood.
Well, yeah, it's just more, and he's somebody that we really, I'm surprised took us so long to get here
Yes,
because
yes.
we all are big fans of him, and he's more than just a director.
Yes, but I do want to focus this episode primarily on his directing career.
Yeah,
But they intertwine because he rarely appears in a film that
Not
he
any-
didn't direct.
not anymore. Yeah, I mean there was a time, of course, but he's appeared in over about 58 movies, and he's directed about 40.
well, one of the other reasons he's that helps him with the getting the directing jobs is pretty much everything he's done probably in the past 20, 30 years has been through Malpaso Productions, which is his
That's
production
his.
That's
company.
his production
That's it.
company.
So,
He
yeah,
formed that in, I think it's like 68, something like that.
Right, yeah.
And essentially has been directing since the early
Mm-hmm.
70s.
Well,
One notable exception, he In the Line of Fire with John Malkovich, I know was directed by Wolfgang Peterson. That was
Well,
a,
yeah, he
That was a
rare,
great
rare,
flick.
yeah, good
he
film.
would still do some of that through the 70s and 80s, but pretty much after Unforgiven, no way.
Yeah.
He would.
Yeah.
That's not to say he always starred in what he directed. He did quite a
No.
few that he wasn't in.
Yes, there's been films that he did not appear in that he did direct.
Yeah.
But generally, since the early 70s, it is very rare for him to
Well,
appear in
he
a
would
film
still
and
produce,
not
not
direct.
always
Yeah,
direct.
but
Yeah.
mostly production stuff. His directorial debut, Play
Yep.
Misty
Play
for
Misty
Me,
for Me. That's right.
1971 with Jessica Walter. He plays
Uh-huh.
a DJ being stalked by a psychotic.
Right.
Kind of a preamble to Michael Douglas in that film a little bit.
Basic Instinct.
Basic.
No,
No.
No.
I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah.
Fatal Attractions.
Fatal
Yeah,
Attraction.
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah,
Fatal
there's a
Attraction,
little
yes.
bit of that in there. Yeah.
Very similar style film. And of course, his notable interest in jazz music factors into that. He
Mhm.
is a jazz DJ,
Mhm.
part of the film, filmed at the Monterey Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
And then he's very famous for essentially ordering the producer to fire the director on
Yes.
Josie Wales
Yeah.
so
and-
he could take over
take over
directing
himself, yeah.
Josie
Which
and he
is-
Wales.
considers that one of his greatest directorial triumphs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is a film that is still something that resonates now, 1976. So moving up on 50 years.
It didn't get the accolades that Unforgiven got, but it certainly many people think that is his finest western and possibly his finest work. It's not the one he's most proud of. The one he's most proud of as a director are the two the bookend books, Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers. That he considers that
Yes,
his greatest
those
work.
are fairly recent.
Yeah, 06, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Now I gotta say, as far as westerns go, to me, it's awful damn hard to beat Unforgiven.
Oh, it is. There's no
It is.
question. It is a
To
great
me,
movie.
I would say that's the greatest of his westerns because there, to use Martin's one of his favorite words, so much pathos in.
Oh
in
yeah.
that.
I mean, it was.
It's full of it. I mean, there's just so much raw emotion and dealing with so many different moral topics.
Right.
Of the
Absolutely.
time.
And he got outstanding performances out of some very heavyweight, big time
Yes.
actors.
Gene Hackman.
It's one of Gene Hackman's best roles.
Right.
Yeah.
Richard Harris, fantastic. He was just a small role, but it was
Oh
he's
yeah,
a
he was
fantastic actor
phenomenal.
anyway.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, Richard Harris is like older than dirt in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and he still pulls it off always. You know, English Bob.
Yep.
Morgan Freeman, of course.
You know, and Gene Hackman he's one of those guys that's still out there. He's pretty much retired from
he is.
performing.
Yeah.
But when you look over Gene Hackman's career,
Mhm.
it's like, wow, these are good movies.
I know that it might be
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
we'd consider doing an episode on because he did such great stuff.
Yeah, and so to have gotten one of his best performances is really a nice, it's a mark of a really great film and a well directed film.
Exactly, and that's the thing about that. People can say, "Oh, well, of course he had an easy time with that. Look at the talent." No, that's exactly the opposite
Right.
that you have to take out of that, because when you have names like that, guys that are just like him, used to having a lot of pull and say in
right,
what goes on,
Yeah,
for him to be able to meld that into that performance,
and Morgan Freeman.
yeah,
Absolutely.
At the height of Morgan Freeman's career, essentially.
well, I mean, the man's like a year younger than God. I don't know if that. So he's been around forever,
And he's still working.
And
Absolutely.
he's still working, yeah.
Well, Clint Eastwood is still directing. I mean, as of this recording, he's directing a movie that's going to be released later this year. Nicholas Holt is
Juror
in it.
number 2.
Thank you. I had it looked up a minute
was
ago.
that?
Juror number 2.
Juror number 2. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Thank
his
you,
next
Jason.
one that he's still working on for Warner Brothers again, which is almost surprising because they had a little, tit back, snit back and forth.
falling out. Yeah.
Yeah, because and I get it. David Zaslav comes in and he says, why did anybody greenlight the last movie Clint made, Cry Macho? Because it failed box office wise. I watched it. I liked it. Cajun, you saw it, too, didn't you? I think.
I did. It didn't impress me none. His most impressive film to me in these last few years is Gran Torino.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say
I
that.
mean,
It's
Himself, he directed it with pretty much a nobody cast.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it
I
was
mean,
a
these
great
are all
movie.
nobodies that he pulled in.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic movie. It was kind of the first of his movies that from that point forward, he's always played the mean old guy that's got whatever problems he's got, and which I get it. That's kind of that's where he's at. That's what he's going to have to play. But again, Gran Torino is one that is awful hard to beat.
It was
He
probably
pi-
the
he
last
picks-
one that got huge notices.
That's correct. Yeah,
that
I mean
was
he's done
very-
some since then. The Mule, I saw it. Meh, it didn't.
The
Cry
Mule was
Macho,
good.
it was good. It was, but it wasn't up to that level. I mean, and I know that Warner Brothers and he apparently they resolved their differences because they greenlit this new movie. But then again, he's not starring in it. He's just directing it, and his directing ability, which is something we want to focus on.
Yes, I want to talk about
One
that
of the
next.
reasons he has done, he's directed over 40 movies is because Clint is always under budget and on time. Every single time. He's never not been. And it's almost to the point where some of the folks that he works with, he's saying, well, why do you want to do that again? Matt Damon is famous for saying, I want to do that scene again. I didn't like the way it is. What do you mean you didn't give your best? It's in the can. It's
did
good.
fine.
Let's go. Yeah, you did fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't F around.
No.
One take, boom, we're done.
Of
Let's
course,
move on.
nowadays, doing it a million takes
Yeah.
costs no money
Well, that's true.
other than time.
But that's one of the
Well,
reasons
yeah,
that
that's why he
because you
doesn't-
got to pay all the people to be there.
Right,
for
but I mean,
that.
as far as in the can, that's meaningless now because
Right,
everything's
yeah.
digital. But yeah.
Yeah.
And actually nowadays, I mean, if you, he doesn't do the big box office blockbuster kind of BS.
He's not a Michael Bay. He's
No.
not doing.
Yeah, he's not
no,
doing
he
Yeah.
picks and chooses, of course, and he goes for that story, which I think is
very
what,
personal.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons that
character
Gran
study.
Torino was so damn good is because it was the story.
Well, that's if you're not doing a blockbuster, you have to do a story.
Well, yeah,
so
I would agree
I mean,
with that.
it's
That's a commentary on our society.
It
that
is,
statement
it
right
is.
there. Yeah, because you
but-
can get away with no story if it's got all the.
if
bells.
it's got enough explosions and enough TNA, you can get away with anything.
Wow, how far we've fallen. You're right.
Well, I mean that's always been true. I mean, when you think about the big block, I mean, you look at the biblical epics.
Yeah.
I don't want to say there's no story there, because obviously there is. I don't want to say that a biblical movie doesn't have a story.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, it's an epic for a reason. It's the visuals. It's just not big explosions.
Right. In other words, the parting of the Red Sea and the Ten Commandments was still, it was its own blockbuster in that time.
Right. Right. It just so happened that at the time, they were willing to take those kind of stories and do them. Not although, they did a Moses movie not that long ago. So
Yeah, and
it's not like that stuff can't get done, but it's not likely to.
Well,
it's not major studio stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now there are a number of smaller studios for the different religions, basically.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And they're putting out a lot of movies.
Well, Angel Studio is the one that's done The Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Their production value is amazing. I don't know if you all watched it. I'm sure, Robert, you probably have.
I have not.
You should. It's so well done. Because it's taking the time. One of my always complaints is when you're doing gospel, you're showing that stuff, you never have enough canvas to paint on. When you've got 3 seasons and you're still maybe only halfway through that story, if that. You're giving space to breathe for something that deserves it. Even The Greatest Story Ever Told, which I think is still one of the standards of biblical movies, especially for the gospel story, you had to cram everything into about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was good, but it was like, how much did you leave out?
Well,
Yeah, they're like, I mean, that's one of the things college professors and high school professors disdain is when a movie's covering a book.
Yeah.
And instead of reading the book, the students just watch the movie, and they don't realize that that's not the same damn text.
It
well,
can't be.
especially nowadays.
Yeah, you have to-
there was
it's
a
like
time when
Cliff
movies
Notes.
were more faithful to books.
Well,
Not 100%.
No.
Because you almost can't be. But the thing with the biblical epics, though, there was a time you could get away with doing a condensed version of the Gospels because everybody knew the stories.
Yeah.
Aha, yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Cliff Notes version.
Millennials and Gen Z, and a good number of us Gen Xers, just they didn't go to church like the parents did and the grandparents did.
Yeah.
So they are only in very broad strokes going to.
Right.
They'll know the cultural touchstones like. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah.
They'll know that. Are they going to know the story behind it? Probably not.
No idea.
You're right, absolutely. I mean, they'll know.
So-
They'll know the
Well,
the
that's
30-second
like the old
soundbite.
saying, if a Catholic needs an answer to a Bible question, call up your local Baptist.
Well, there's some truth to that. That's correct. Because
Well, that's if you want the chapter and verse.
That's the wrong Bible.
that's and there's
Well, that too.
we could talk on that one too. Yeah.
Well, it depends. If you want a New Testament, it's okay because I got the same books there.
Well, but they
Yeah,
don't
well,
have the
you
same
can guess
text.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings me around again to Clint, and again he's the current technology and the current way that you can raise funds online
Yes.
leads to that kind of idea of a guerrilla filmmaker, and in a way, Clint's the originator of guerrilla
Yeah.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His mentors, he had 2 primary mentors, Don Siegel
Yeah.
and Sergio Leone,
Yes.
Uh-huh.
and
Spaghetti westerns.
he was driven into directing because he just doesn't like having his time wasted.
Well, yeah, and
And
that's
essentially, right,
yeah.
like you said, he
One
got
take,
tired
let's
of
move
fooling
on, yeah.
around with other directors and said, "Well, I can do this, and I can do it on time and on budget." And like you said, he doesn't. He's an actor's director,
yeah.
but he doesn't coddle.
No.
He's like, "You did a great performance. Let's move on. You
He's-
don't need to do this 10 more times. We're good."
He is the director version of Charlton Heston. Yeah, I think in many ways because he's a professional in everything he does.
Right. Yeah.
And while he is probably very much a, not a perfectionist in the sense that, like you're saying, that works. We
Like
don't
a
have to
Ku-
keep doing it.
Like a Kubrick would be, who
But-
over
right.
and over and over again.
But he's both are the kind of guys that are so professional. They're going to come prepared on day one.
Yeah.
If you remember out of the Charlton Heston book, every movie that he did, he got a voice coach for because he wanted to get the voice right. Now, honestly, I don't see a whole lot of difference in the way he's speaking in most of them.
Well,
He still sounds like Chuck, but
He
you're
still
right.
sounds like Chuck,
Well, no.
but still, that's his level of preparation.
Oh yeah,
And if Charlton Heston had wanted to be a director, I think he would have ended up being the same kind of approach. You know,
Yeah.
on time, under budget, and let's get this thing done.
Yeah, very
and
professional.
Get the most out of everybody involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Don Siegel was a contract director
hmm
rather than nowadays. Of course, you're always independent, but back in the day, a studio
Yeah.
had a
had
stable of directors to
Yeah.
make their films.
And you
And
didn't
so it-
cross over as a general
Right.
rule.
So it became important to, if you didn't want to, lose your ass, you'd better get it in on time. You better get it in under budget because that's all the money you were getting.
Yeah.
And, it became that auteur thing when directors became artists that
Well-
allowed them to blow the budgets up.
Well,
and,
Spielberg
oh,
had a little to do with that
yeah.
with Jaws.
Michael Cimino, is that how you pronounce his name?
In
Well, he famously had the Deer Hunter
yeah.
that worked, and then of course Heaven's Gate was a disaster.
That's right, because that
went
was
30 million
kind of
over
the
budget or
reaction
some
backwards.
crazy number.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Jaws was famously. I mean, they almost pulled the plug on Spielberg numerous
Yeah.
times, and he was able to get it in the can because they'd invested so much of it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's one of the biggest movies in
But
history.
right, and of course, all of that same time is when that studio piece is being overturned there in the early 70s.
Yep.
And they're giving these directors all of this leeway.
Mhm.
And sometimes it works.
Coppola
Sometimes it
famously
doesn't.
got a ton of leeway, but he produced.
Well, absolutely, because
went-
The
was a
Godfather
huge
was
success.
almost didn't happen, and that's the only way he made Apocalypse Now is because of The Godfather's enormous success. Because that you want to talk about famous for overrunning, and
Yeah.
some of that wasn't
Mhm.
Coppola's fault, but
Yeah.
we'll
But-
talk.
If
but
you're
those
the-
films
if-
all delivered.
Yeah.
If your name is at both the director and the producer,
Yeah.
it's all your fault.
That's correct. That's right.
So you can't say it wasn't
well,
all of his fault.
Monsoon's standing, notwithstanding, because they literally
Well-
lost like 2 months worth of shooting because all their sets were destroyed in a monsoon when they
That's
were
poor
over time.
planning.
That's
Yeah.
choices.
I mean, seriously. I mean, there is a monsoon season.
Well,
Oh yeah.
yeah, there's it's a.
But that's
We could talk forever on that one, and we
Yeah,
will
that-
because we're going to talk
this-
about Coppola in
thi-
one of these
this
episodes.
is where Clint, of course, learned this. Again,
Mhm.
Siegel is a contract director. He doesn't get that kind of leeway.
That's right. Yeah,
They're not going to give him all of that leash. So that's ingrained in Siegel,
Mhm.
and he transfers that lesson to Eastwood.
When
Yeah.
Burt Reynolds tells a story, and they were both apparently going for a contract actors thing for Universal back in the day.
yeah.
And Burt Reynolds tells this story about how they both get called in, and whoever it was at Universal was talking to Clint and said, "Look, we're going to have to fire you." He says, "Well, why?" He goes, "Well, you've got that chipped tooth that you're not going to get fixed. Your chin sticks out to here, and you talk too slow." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Just kind of sulks. And then Burt Reynolds goes, "Well, then why the hell are you firing me?" And they look at him and go, "Well, because you can't act." And then Burt says he went walking with Clint, and they went to go get a beer afterwards.
Yeah, they were famous friends. Yeah.
And they're sitting there talking, and Burt looks up, and he's like, "Clint, you're really just screwed, aren't you?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I can always learn to act, but you're always going to look like this." And he talks about, how he thinks Clint only knows like 12 words. And such. So, yeah, you could tell they're good friends.
Yeah, they made City Heat together, which actually was a fun movie.
Hmm.
Didn't do that well, but it laid into that very thing.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they each played sort of kind of themselves,
Hmm.
and by that time in the late '80s, they were set in stone.
Oh, yeah, they
those
were
type of
established.
characters that they would play.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you boil it down, when you get to have been in so many movies,
Yeah.
And you gravitate towards certain things because Clint never did a space opera.
No.
No.
He
He did do that
space-
gay porn movie.
Space Cowboys was the closest he got to that.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But still wasn't a space opera.
Correct, that's right,
You know,
yeah.
it wasn't a Star Wars. It wasn't anything like
No,
that.
yeah, and he's offered
No.
tons of stuff.
But you even in the choices you make, you're going to start pigeonholing yourself.
Oh yeah,
So and whether he realizes he did or not, or just because look, this is the kind of thing I'm comfortable playing, doesn't matter because he was damn good at it.
right. Well, he makes a comment about when he did his the first spaghetti western, Fistful of Dollars
Yeah.
for Sergio Leone
Yeah.
in Italy of all things. The only thing he'd really done at that point was rawhide, and he says I did not want to get stuck playing because I've been playing the white hat hero guy all this time, and he says I really didn't want that
He
anymore.
wanted to play something
There's
different.
no depth to that, and that's why he and Leone together. That's why they were such great partnership. Created his Man with No Name, even though the cigar Clint didn't smoke, but that was Leone's contribution
Yeah,
to
that's
try and.
part of the mask. Of
The
Man with
mask
No
exactly
Name.
is the word that they used on that.
Mhm.
So to try and create something, and that's when you realize, wait a minute, this guy really does have some serious range, with minimal dialogue in all three of those
It
movies.
was the movement.
Yeah,
The way he moved in those three films was the character.
very much so. And that's,
Well, yes, I mean that's
The
one of the
deliberate
things
movement.
that again, it's the attention to craft
Yeah.
that like Heston did with his acting and
Yeah.
and how he did.
And-
All the details have to be right,
And Clint
whether
said
it's
he learned
voice or movement.
it was Leone that taught him a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although he brought his own genius to that as well. I really wished he had gone ahead and done the fourth one, Once Upon a Time in the West. He was originally supposed to play in that for Leone. But by the time he'd done three, he said, "Nah, I don't want to do four. I don't mind doing westerns, but I want to branch out." He was always concerned about doing something different.
And by that time, he was ready to move into again directing his own.
Yeah, because you were just a few years shy of when he did play Misty for me.
Yeah.
He
So
learned
Play
about it.
Misty for me is 71.
Yeah.
High Plains Drifter is 73.
Oh.
That's his first western he directed himself in.
And whoa, that's still
High
one
Plains
of
Drifter is a great film.
It's
And
a
then
great film.
again, he fires Philip Kaufman, I think it is, off of Josie Wales and takes over directing Josie Wales in 76.
But he
Which
does
gives-
so
which-
many in between there too, because he does Kelly's Heroes, he does Where
Yep.
Eagles Dare, he does Joe Kidd, Coogan's Bluff, Two
Right.
Mules for Sister Sarah, all these in just a matter of Dirty Harry. We haven't even talked about
Yeah,
Dirty
Dirty
Harry.
Harry's 71. But again, he's not directing himself
No.
in
Yeah,
those
he doesn't
films.
direct
Right,
any,
but
any of the Dirty Harrys.
yeah, Francis' point though is he's busy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he kept-
Well,
So-
and he's a bankable star
Yeah.
at this point, so he can pick and choose, and it's worth looking at some of the projects he chooses and some he turns down. Do you know he was scheduled originally to play Two-Face in the fourth season of Batman?
Oh.
But it didn't happen.
He was offered Willard in Apocalypse Now.
Yes, he was. He was. He and Burt Reynolds were both considered for James Bond. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
They told Broccoli no, no
No Americans.
no cubby.
which is
Well,
only
Clint
a
Eastwood
Brit.
turned it down.
which see,
Yeah,
that-
only-
Eastwood
a
actually was
Brit.
offered it and turned it down.
Yeah.
Burt Reynolds was considered, and John Gavin was considered.
Yeah.
Who was?
But yeah, all the American actors told Cubby Broccoli no.
Yeah.
well, you see, the
Gotta have a
ironic
Brit.
thing about that is the first filmed James Bond. James Bond was the one who worked for the CIA.
Yeah, Casino Royale in the 50s.
In the 50s.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with Barry
50
Nelson.
Yeah,
it
50
was.
I believe
Yeah,
it was
that movie
56.
that no one likes to talk about.
Yeah, well, it was
Yeah,
a
they leave
it was
that-
a
it was TV special.
it was a TV special is what it was. It's not bad.
No,
it's
no,
actually
no.
it's
Actually
actually
quite-
pretty faithful to the book, because Casino Royale was written in '53, and this
Yeah.
is like 4 years later that they're actually filming it, which was something to be said, because Bond really wasn't anything at that point.
Exactly.
It was just another property, and it worked okay. But Barry Nelson, he played him in an American accent. He plays him as American.
Yeah, and it turned out real. The good part about that was it was live TV,
Oh yeah,
so it was done basically as a play.
Right.
yeah.
And I really enjoy those because the actors really get to show their stuff
Very much
when
so.
you don't get retakes.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But Peter Lorre played the villain,
It
Lashif.
did
Yeah.
a wonderful job with
Yeah,
it.
he did.
Peter Lorre is just a national treasure.
Yes, he was. Yes,
He
very
was.
much so.
I mean, he was just phenomenal in so many things.
and he could do so many different things too. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
was in the movie A Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It was a
Yes.
role, but it was just he
Oh,
was a
yeah.
good guy there. He wasn't a villain. He could do many things.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite part, just because it's one of my favorite movies, is his part in Arsenic and Old Lace.
Yeah.
when he plays the Doctor.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
he's just such a wonderful character actor.
absolutely.
Just so many good things.
Mhm.
But
I think this is a good spot to stop. So
And-
let's do Robert, if you would, please, because after this, I want to get back to
Bourbon Break.
I want to get back to Eastwood's relationship with the actors.
Yeah.
But
Well, I got something I want to bring up too.
oh, excellent!
So-
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, anyways, Bourbon Break.
excellent. So I want to go. I want to hand this off to Cajun first and get his.
Yes, Cajun, you need to speak up more.
So I insisted that the fellas all try Baker's 7. This is the first time we've had Baker's 7-year-old on the show. And so far, my impression is I love it.
Okay.
But I want to get Cajun's, since he has the most advanced palate of all of us, I think. Let's get his impressions first.
I don't know if I go that way, but well, let's make a note here. We're looking at about a 7-year, almost 8-year-old product here that's 77% corn, 13% rye, and 10% malted barley. Now, the malted barley is adding a lot of sweetness to it.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
giving it a
that's what I'm
good
picking up, too.
caramel. You can get some vanilla, bacon slices in there.
Yep.
Yeah,
And it's very smooth for 107 proof.
Oh hell yeah!
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm drinking it. I think we're all up here anyway. We're drinking it over ice, and it is amazingly smooth. Usually, that when you get into that higher proof, the burn is there, but there's none of that.
Well, there is that initially.
I'm not even doing it over ice. I'm drinking it neat at the moment.
oh, well, so your experience will
Amen.
be different then.
This is one that, again, we all know we've talked about a million times. The ice and the water really does transform the bourbon. That first sip, when it was still very little melting had happened, it wasn't real harsh in the mouth. I mean, you still get that ethanol taste. The first drink of bourbon, especially the first one of the day, is always going to be a little bit.
I mean, yes,
rough.
you know it's bourbon,
Yes,
but
it
I thought
wasn't.
Yeah, it was very
Like it
smooth.
wasn't as harsh as the old granddad 114 was straight. I mean, I still have not gotten
Oh,
around to it.
Booker's.
Right. Or even the Bookers, but the Bookers though, you can still tell what's going to come once that opens up.
Old Granddad 114 will straighten your eyelashes on you.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to that over ice. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
Because I've seen in several places. Matter of fact, one of the articles that the Imperator forwarded, one of the bartenders listed that as one of the most underrated bourbons out there.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and we've had that. That's good
It's
stuff.
it's,
yeah.
it's very well thought of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It is. It's definitely not. But anyways,
But you got to set your feet before you have some of that.
you do. You
well,
need
it's
to
like
get your
the Old
feet set.
Forester Prohibition style at 120 proof. Yeah,
Yes.
burning your eyelashes is probably a good way of
Yeah.
Yeah,
saying
it's
this.
straight-
But anyways,
It'll uncurl your eyelashes on
yeah.
you.
This
But
you
hair on
definitely
your
get some
nipples.
nice sweetness in the mouth, especially
Yes.
before the ice is. But the very nice round ice ball that Martin has provided.
I have big balls,
Well, ice balls, anyways.
ice balls.
Anyways,
And he's providing them
and he is sharing his balls, people. He is sharing his balls.
in your mouth, you said.
Oh god.
No,
Yes.
it has not touched my mouth.
I
I don't think he could get it in his mouth.
I've put my big balls in your bourbon.
As large as that is, you may want to see a doctor because that just ain't normal.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a swollen and extended.
Elephantitis going on there.
No, I.
Could be.
They don't get used for much, so
Oh.
Now, one of
Skip
the
a bit,
one of the
brother,
problems
please.
I had when I was dying was
Which time?
Which time? That's what.
time. Yeah, I
I'm sorry. I,
know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
the main time
The
that he
ma-
was
well,
done.
the
yeah.
big time. Yeah.
One of mine swelled up to the size of a cantaloupe.
Those are visuals.
I'm not
Oh,
even.
man, let's skip it.
I'm just not even going to
Makes
go
it
there.
very
wanna go there.
difficult on you, but
Yeah,
Anyways, what I was going to say.
Thanks for sharing.
yes,
Thanks for sharing. I find that too much ice is. This has got a very straight out of the bottle, a very nice amber, slightly gold amber.
Yes, it is dark. It is again been in the
Yeah.
barrel 7 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not so dark that it's like. It's
not
not as dark as many, but it's. I would
yeah.
call this in the middle, but it's
Yeah.
a very rich color.
Yeah.
But now that the ice has melted enough, it's very much a light gold.
Like gold.
yeah,
And it
a
is-
healthy urine color.
It is too much ice in this now because it has diluted the flavor
Ah,
too much. This is one of those bourbons where while it does open up, to me, the ice melted so much that it.
Yeah,
Maybe you just need to drink it faster.
Well, that could be too, but you know,
Well, yes.
Because I'm done.
it just
You're done,
'Cause
but
I didn't touch mine until just now, and you fixed it 30 minutes ago, so it's
I don't know that it's been that long ago, but I've noticed that it's eaten the ice out of all the cups.
it has, yes.
I mean, it's a surprise to see it do that.
Well, that's partially
Yeah.
the ice.
Francis, you should have hit it as early. Again, the
Uh-huh.
flavor to me it was very rich,
yes,
yet
early
not,
on,
yet not harsh.
right?
It was not medicine-y.
no, it didn't
No.
do that.
No,
it
not
was-
at all.
As Cajun mentioned it, kind of this caramel vanilla.
Oaky. There's oaky in there.
There's a little
Absolutely.
bit of oak.
There's a
Yeah,
little bit of
that.
it's
Oak on the
definitely got
finish.
oak and like a little bit of pepper. I mean, little bit of rye.
That's the
does add
rye.
that little
Yeah,
bit
you get
of
just a
corn to it.
teensy bit of that though. You know,
Okay.
I know you guys
It's
usually
very
don't like
baking
sugar.
spice. It's not pepper. It's more like almost like a nutmeg or something like coriander or even something like that.
I'm still getting the pepper at the very end.
I do.
You're getting
Yeah,
a little bit of pepper.
yeah.
There's an
I am
aftertaste to that.
especially with it neat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
probably going to
Yeah,
get it much
yeah.
more.
But
much
but at
better.
13%, though, I wouldn't expect a whole lot, especially with that high amount of corn.
But the
Well,
way
yeah,
the way
malted
it's
bar-
No,
the
it's
malted
like
barley
taking the
over-
pepper mill off the stove and putting it over the top of your biscuits and gravy. A little bit of peppercorn.
Yeah,
so I like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
just a
yes,
hair of
yes,
that. Yeah, and the
yes.
malted barley kind of offsets that.
that's of course that's your starter.
Yeah.
Everything has the barley in it
Yeah.
as a starter for your distillation. But it's an outstanding product.
Oh, there's no question
It's
as to that.
outstanding.
Yeah, and, retails about
very
what
pleased.
$70.
Yeah, $70. So it is a higher end.
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
For us, especially. Although,
Yeah.
you know, you listen to some of the straight up bourbon podcasts, and not that they, it's put their nose in the air at some of the bourbons that
They're
are.
getting it for free.
No, not always.
all of them?
No.
Okay.
Because a lot of these guys, they do have some sponsors, but
Okay.
they don't. Because they talk about, especially the secondary market on some of them,
Yeah, it goes up.
and
Yeah,
they're talking
it's-
about bourbons that are retailing in the $150 range, and how much they go for, and some of the ones that are really special that retail in the multiple $100s,
Yeah.
Right.
and what it goes for.
Well, and this Baker's is not always available. Am I correct on that?
it
is-
again, it's usually released in the fall.
Right, and you only get it like once a year, and until it's gone.
And when it,
be lucky to still get it.
usually you can find it through. I would say it's still available right now,
yeah, in January, yeah,
January, but
not for long.
January, February, and then it's going to start to disappear.
Yeah,
But I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with it.
yeah. I've like I
Good.
said, I've
It's
never
good.
had it.
I think it's
until
worth the
this.
money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it usually is. I mean, there's only we are very merciful, I suppose, in our bourbon tasting. There's only one that we
Right.
absolutely said don't do
Mhm.
this.
Don't get.
And even the one that you disliked, Buffalo Trace. I mean, the rest of us were pretty okay with that. That's the only major brand that any of us have really had much of a
right.
problem with.
So even though I think the flavor was a bit diluted with the ice, which doesn't happen with every bourbon, but this one it kind of disappeared a little bit. It still has a great finish
Yes.
in the chest, down the
Yeah.
throat.
Not,
It's
not harsh at all.
No.
Just very
Oh no, very
warm.
mild, very warm and mild, and like I
Yes.
say, mine's diluted down. It's bloomed well, but it's still chilled. It's got a
Mhm.
good taste.
See now, the snorting of it that I did.
And you snorted it early.
Yeah, I snorted it early.
Sniffing probably better than snorting.
Well, yeah, this is true, but it did remind me a lot of a higher alcohol content Maker's Mark. And
You
I don't
mentioned
know
that earlier,
I don't
yeah.
know why it does that.
Yeah, I'm not
It did.
sure because Makers would famously be more of a weeded.
whiskey.
And
Sweet.
very
Yeah.
sweet.
It's sweet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. But
extremely
this
sweet. This
struck-
doesn't
this-
have that.
I
But
don't-
it does have a little. It's
Yeah,
that I think it's the malted
it may be
barley.
the malted barley, but it needs. I mean, it would, in my opinion,
Well,
it would be an excellent cooking bourbon.
Oh, I think this
Yeah.
is well beyond a cooking bourbon.
Yeah, I mean, Maker's Mark is a good cooking bourbon. It's a
But
good
it's
mix.
okay.
Depending on the makers you get.
Yeah, it's okay.
Makers 46, I think, is an excellent
Very-
drinking bourbon.
which is very different. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
It's rather than
And they've got some higher proof ones that have come out in the past couple of years.
sure, and
They're
there's
supposed to be very good. Yeah, yes, the standard bottle of Makers, which I've got at home, which I haven't touched in forever. Although we did sample it on one of the shows.
Yeah, I mean, I have it
it's
unopened.
been a long time.
It's
I've
been
got
a long
I've got a
time.
huge
Well,
bottle left over from my nephew's wedding. that-
Maker's mash bill. I got it pulled up.
Okay.
70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. So
That's
yeah,
where
that
we're
could be
getting-
some
That's
somewhere
why
else
it's
there
sweet.
already.
That's
Yeah.
the wheat.
No.
And it's its own niche. It's its own
Yeah.
thing. I mean, and as we've often discussed, the marketing on that brand is phenomenal. It has been. I mean, everybody
Oh,
knows
yeah.
what the red wax
Yeah.
means.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's I'll give them a lot of credit, and I'd love to know who came up with that marketing that was so prominent for so long. I'd love to know
Bill
that.
Samuel's wife.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The red wax was her idea.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's a brilliant
but
idea.
not the marketing on that though. I mean, she.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
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 The red wax was on it.
The
before
idea
those-
of being
market the red-
distinctive. Yeah.
market the red wax.
Yeah. I
as
mean, very
opposed to-
famously, Bill Samuels, threw away the family recipe and completely redid it to add the wheat, and then his wife added the red wax and the
Yes,
idea
that's
of
a story that
marketing.
at some point when we do a more bourbon centric show we should talk about because that is just so unusual in the bourbon industry that somebody would take a
I see-
family recipe
Yeah.
that was a popular recipe
Yeah.
and
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 throw
just
it
toss
away.
it. Yeah.
Throw
Yeah.
it away.
Well, I sense a hoopajube called Bourbon Legends might just be
Ooh,
in our
I
future.
like that.
You know,
I like that.
yeah.
I just
idea.
kind of
So, real quick, just Cajun, give me the mash bill on the bakers again, because you said it was a very high corn, right?
It's like 73%, I think he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Get back to that one.
oh,
It was 77%
Damage.
corn, 13% rye, and 10% malted barley.
Okay,
Now,
77.
how much
so-
wheat again? Sorry.
No wheat in this one.
No wheat.
No wheat in the bakers, but the
No wheat in the
corn,
bacon.
the corn will contribute.
Oh, yes, the
sweetness.
corn
Oh, yeah.
is
I mean,
definitely where the
that's-
sweetness.
That's going to contribute sweetness. So
well, and something we don't talk about a
I
whole
think that's
lot.
very well
is-
balanced. Again, the rye being peppery balances it out very nicely.
Sure. One of the things we don't talk about a whole lot because it's one of those things you just can't know because nobody's going to tell you this is what goes into the yeast strain that
Yeah.
starts all this stuff.
This
out.
is true.
Yeah.
And you can take your mash bill and take the exact same thing and you change out your yeast strain, you've changed your bourbon entirely.
Yep.
So
Oh, yeah.
that's something that is, and some of these yeast strains are really old. I mean, they go back to
Oh,
the
yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fascinating when you think about it. But that's just something that I wish we could delve into that a little bit more. But that's almost impossible without being an insider.
Yeah.
And
I
if
mean,
you are, you can't talk about it.
yeah, you need a distiller to talk about those kind of that chemical.
Yeah.
That chemistry of the bourbon.
Yes, and high end chemists with not just masters but doctorates. Those are the kind of people they're hiring nowadays.
Well, if we get Bourbon Scout, he has to bring Stephen Beam with him then.
Well, obviously.
Hey, would you be willing to appear on a podcast that has 6,000 downloads after 3 years?
I'm sure we have broken 7,000 by now.
we were real close there.
Yeah.
Now,
'cause-
Oh, awesome.
Now, something that, speaking of yeast, something that may transfer over to bourbons from beers is these ones where they're making beers from different women's vaginal yeast.
I'm not sure we.
Of course, you would bring that.
I'm not sure we need to go there.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Well, no, there's a multiple distilleries. Here's one. It's called
if I had to pick
Order
any-
of Yoni.
I was gonna say we could come up with some interesting names, being the creative folks that we are.
I-
how that one goes.
But yes, I mean, making beer and making bourbon,
it all starts
making,
the same.
Making whiskey is,
Yes.
is a lot of the
And-
same. It's
And that may be one of the things that they start doing, to break out from the pack.
So you're suggesting that they cultivate porn stars.
No. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm saying I'm surprised it
Jen
hasn't
is
a
happened
Jameson
yet.
logical
bourbon.
conclusion.
It may happen.
So when we see a female sponsored bourbon, we know
If they
The
make
connection.
it, if they make it from Selma Hayek's yeast, I'm buying it.
Oh God Almighty! I
So we're
swear.
going to market it like Red Snapper Bourbon. It bites back.
It fights back.
You guys are killing me.
Oh, that was good.
I feel just like Al Pacino in Godfather 3. The more I try to get out, they pull me back in.
wow.
Well, but that's what makes this podcast so wonderful.
Well,
Yes.
I understand.
Our demented sense of humor and
I'm trying to keep us tied to good taste, gentlemen. And
I know, but
failing over and over again.
It's a
There
tilting at windmill.
yeah, there's no
yeah,
good
I was going to say,
absolutely.
in the 4 years we have been doing this, since we first started the very first planning this in 2019,
Yeah.
and you're still hanging on to that good taste idea?
I'm trying, baby. I'm telling you. You guys know me. You've known me for how many years? I am the eternal
Exactly.
optimist.
And you've
I'm
never
always-
had good taste.
I would
Hey,
resemble that
myself.
remark. I'd like to think my taste is
Gut
excellent.
cells.
I'm no Fraser Crane, but I think I'm okay.
Well, Francis again is my hero,
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Yes.
and but I think this is a very Don Quixote-esque
Approach to life.
approach of him.
Yeah.
At least to us,
I don't. Yeah, I mean for this
we're long gone.
this
Yeah.
enterprise, you may be tilting at a windmill here.
I understand.
Oh, hell, I've been trying to corrupt Francis for 50 years.
Yes, you have. That's right. And you
It-
haven't
it-
quite succeeded.
Yeah,
Get
his
you yet.
fortitude, his
With occasional lapses, I suppose.
yeah, but no. Francis is the most morally upright person I know. I think.
Well, he's the Archbishop's right hand now.
Well, this is true. Yeah, I suppose I am at my star is in ascendance at the
Mhm.
moment. I've been doing good work and it's been recognized,
Well,
and
that's it. We ought to get
I'm
the
grateful for that.
Well, gotta get the Archbishop in for one of
when
these.
you're just down the hall.
I didn't understand half of what either one of you said because you were
Sorry.
talking over each other.
No, actually, no. I'm in a different building than he is, so I don't see him often. I mean, I actually quite a
Well,
bit compared to some.
Well, you
folks.
know, there is a very special job opening that should be coming soon, relatively speaking. So, you know, maybe you will be the right hand man one
Oh,
day.
Lord.
gonna leave?
Yes.
Well, at some point he has to.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
in theory, yeah.
well, I wouldn't worry, guys. I mean,
Well-
I enjoy his good favor, and I work hard for it. Yes, but you know, who doesn't want excellence?
But
I
here-
mean, we
here's-
are all about excellence.
But
here,
you haven't
Snakes.
introduced your
Really are.
friends to him.
Well, it's an opportunity.
Well, no, no, he.
He knows Robert. I know he
yes,
does.
he knows. Yeah, well,
You,
yes.
yeah.
I
I mean, not as well.
he knows of you. You've
No, we have. Yes,
you've had a few encounters, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, he actually came to one of my parishes and did mass in December, I think it was.
oh really?
like
I didn't know
that,
that.
yeah.
It was very interesting because he was like, "How many masses do you have a weekend?"
Oh, and I would have said the same thing. I've always said the same
Yeah.
thing out there.
And I said, "Well, it's currently we're down to 4. It was 5." And he and the priest who was visiting from where he was in Louisiana, they were both just gobsmacked that we used to do 5 on a weekend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's a few. I mean, Andre, his parish,
yeah.
they do still do 5.
Well,
And
they also have. Well, granted, not all of the deacons are active.
That's a
but,
very
you know.
large parish.
it is the largest, actually. Something that Andre has rubbed my nose in because we were for
yes,
a long time.
Yes, your parish used to be the largest.
Yeah,
and
don't
now-
know. Remind me.
now
That's
Andre.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Andre and I have
Shout
never-
out to Brother Andre, though. I did stop in his favorite liquor store and
Okay.
did come across Henry McKenna 10-year-old,
which you did purchase, right?
which I purchased, which I have heard is the bourbon that bested Pappy in blind tasting.
Oh my!
Really? Now there's a bourbon in.
So that is
for
that
you.
is waiting for us for a later time.
I was gonna say because you had indicated this was our intention for today.
Yes. I have mapped out the bourbon tastings for today as bakers, and then another bourbon
A surprise for next episode.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
But yes, Henry McKenna 10-year-old bottled in bond is waiting for us at a
At a
later
future
date.
And I've had Henry McKenna. I don't think I've had the bottle and bond
You
in
haven't?
years.
Yeah. It's totally different from the.
Cajun, do you have that one? Have we
Regular.
tasted at your place?
No.
I didn't think so.
I may have it, but it hasn't been opened. If
Had
I
been cracked.
do.
Yeah. See, that's how we.
It's
Mhm.
green Henry McKenna
I
green
lose
label.
track of what I got on the shelf.
I know we were all so jealous.
But this is.
But it took you a while to get there. I mean,
Yeah.
you did that over years, right?
Oh yes, and while we're
For the
thinking,
last few years.
while I'm thinking about this, big shout out to Cajun. My eternal gratitude for the gift of the what is now my liquor cabinet.
Your bourbon cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I tell you,
Oh, it's
that
so
that picture
impressive.
was so cool,
Yes,
and I'm
yes.
so glad his mom and dad are so grateful that it's got a home. I know that.
Well, I tell you what, it had been sitting for a little bit,
Mhm.
and I took the Murphy's oil soap to it, and oh my gosh, it just shines.
That's so
It's
awesome.
cherry
And it's,
wood.
It's right
So
there in your
love
front
that.
room, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it's right there in the living
where
room.
we recorded last time we were at
where
your
we
place.
recorded, yes.
Mhm.
And as you walk from the kitchen to the living room, that's what you see is that.
Wow, that's
And
so awesome.
I love
you know,
that.
That one was actually my grandparents, my mother's parents.
Oh, really,
Is
Papa
that
and
where
Dada?
that one
Oh,
originally
I didn't
came
know
from?
that. Yeah.
So a huge shout out. Just love it.
Yeah, his grandparents were
I
the
so love
greatest
it.
folks. I
Yeah,
remember them so
when
well.
you can keep something old, refreshed, and in use, and it
Mhm.
doesn't,
Yes.
doesn't get thrown away because it's not.
I need to
This
post
or
a picture
that.
of that on the blog.
It's
Absolutely.
so awesome.
There you go.
Oh
There should be
yes,
something to post.
yes.
So
The picture was so impressive.
I was
just
talking about
awesome.
on our chat. I didn't realize, because I've been
On our secure channel, folks.
yes, secure channel, yes.
Our secure encrypted channel.
That's right.
Yeah, I've been talking about how I had bought a bunch of bourbons and I had because I just had them on top of the refrigerator because when you only
That's
had
true.
when we started out you just had one or two bottles, no big deal.
Yeah, but after 3 years, it grows.
It grows, and at
Yeah,
one time
yeah.
I had about a dozen up there, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've got to get some of these." But I had been buying some more, but I've been keeping them in the basement because I just didn't have room for them. And some of them I was saving for writing milestones, like when I published the book.
Well, yeah.
And
My
things like
Hemingway
that.
bottle is still a signed Hemingway bottle is waiting for that.
Yes.
Yep.
And yes, and I've got a couple of bottles that I'm waiting for those really big milestones. But anyways, when I put them all out, I ended up with 18. That was
Oh.
after I had
Kidding.
emptied 4 bottles over Christmas vacation.
We helped you with a little bit of that.
With a little bit of that,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. Yeah.
But but there were still 18 left. Most of them were fairly high in the amount that was left in the bottle. So
We have some work to do at your place.
yeah, well,
Remember that,
somebody's
right?
got some work to do. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, and I have gone on a little bit of a buying spree since spring, and again,
Yes, you have been picking up.
I
I know. I
Yes,
might have a
uh,
cardiac arrest. You're actually going out and spending some money on
yeah,
this.
very
It's perfect,
intentionally,
yeah.
very intentionally. Again,
Of course, we know you. Of course,
the
it's
place-
never going
oh,
to be
Oh yeah, I mean,
always intentional.
two
yes.
Martins pulling on a penny is how copper wire was invented.
Absolutely, we know
That's
this.
But again, the place down the street has stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a little hole in the wall joint.
Always buy local. We love that. I mean, that's fantastic
Yeah. Oh, I
stuff.
love buying local. A little hole in the wall joint. He actually has stuff. Yeah, he's a little over retail,
Well, because I
but
mean,
he
he's
knows what
small.
he's got.
His overhead's higher than Kroger's.
Yeah, he
And-
can't get bulk discounts.
Us supporting that keeps him in business, so we're
Exactly.
happy to do that.
So and
'Cause
then
it's not that much more.
yeah, and then I did make a stop. I was out in Brother Andre's area.
Yeah, did you went to the place that he
And-
recommended?
and yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
and that's where I scored the Henry McKenna. So Eagle Rare. I've been looking for Eagle Rare for 2 years.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely.
And you
And
found a
it-
bottle.
And
You
found
actually
it
have
down, just down the street from my own home.
So-
So I feel kind of stupid.
well,
not
so
going in
when are we
there.
getting to crack that one here?
I
Oh,
tell
it
you
is-
what,
it's crap.
that is well worth it.
Cajun
My
will tell you
company-
it was our first bourbon when we were 12. Was
My
Eagle
company
Rare.
Christmas party. It was
Yep.
at in Butchertown. There's a little place that has the bowling alley in the basement,
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I forget the name of it.
Vernon.
Yeah, that's it, Vernon Lanes. Yep.
Yeah.
And they give you drink tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my drink tickets and was like, all right, what bourbons do you have? And I saw they had the Eagle Rare 10-year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't we?
Oh, that was
When
good.
we went to A1 last time, didn't one of us get Eagle Rare?
A1.
No, you know the place over in Colonial Gardens that I can never remember the damn
Oh.
name of.
BA Colonial.
BA Colonial. That's right. Didn't we? Didn't
No,
one
I
of
don't
us-
think any of us got any
we've
alcohol there.
never had any
No.
alcohol at BA Colonial.
We've all been for
I'm
lunch.
sorry,
No,
it
no.
was the Sherwood End.
No, the Sherwood.
Sherwood had it,
I got I.W. Harper 15
That's correct. You
year.
decided for
That's
that
right. And I got the
Uh,
Monks Road 5th District.
oh.
And I had the it was Old Forester Prohibition style.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's still one of my favorites. Yeah,
Yeah.
Which, that's a great value. That's a $60 bottle of bourbon. at
Absolutely.
Kroger's.
and especially once you let it bloom a little, because 120 proof.
Yeah, you need to let that one bloom.
It'll knock your in the.
Yeah.
I won't say that.
So
It's one of the things I say to Her Majesty sometimes, and she just looks at me and says, "Don't say that again."
So I'm expecting I.W. Harper to be available again in June.
Oh, we'll have to keep our eyes open.
So
I was gonna
according,
say
yes,
one of us
according-
needs to purchase it. Yeah.
Yes, grab it because it's awesome. But
I'm-
yes, if you can get a hold of Eagle Rare E.H. Taylor at a podunk small neighborhood.
Well, I mean, thanks to Brother Andre
liquor
for the E.H.
store.
Taylor. Her Majesty tried some of that, and she has sold completely.
Oh, it's
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
She's not a bourbon person by any means, but she
It's awesome.
really, I mean, she'd rather
I
have.
thought Her Majesty was a bourbon.
No, she prefers the Moscow Mules.
Because I thought she was really big into the Angel's Envy that we got in trouble
She
for. at
does.
the
She
time.
does like Angel's Envy. I don't think I told you guys. We toured that over Christmas.
Yeah, yeah.
With the whole family,
Well done.
actually, which was really kind of cool to do something like that. When your kids get all above 21, everything changes. Marcus, you know all this.
Well,
You-
mine are in their 30s.
I was going to
now.
say, well, yours are the oldest. Yeah,
Yeah.
because your wife was enormously pregnant at our wedding.
Yeah.
And we still we watch the
Well,
video every once in a while. We look at her and we go,
I have-
"Gosh, she is so miserable."
I have been with the missus, what,
Well, I mean,
36 years.
I was going to say because
This
we'll
past
be married
Christmas?
34 this year.
35 years this past Christmas.
Yeah,
And we will have been married, no, it'd be 30,
No, 35.
35, yeah.
yeah, because
And
you
we
married
will
the
have
year
been
before
married,
we did.
yeah, we'll be married 34 years this Valentine's Day.
See, we'll be married 34 years in June,
Yeah.
and you guys were all after that.
Yeah, Robert was next and I was last.
Yes, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary this
30th,
past
that's right.
August.
Yes, and
Wait a
our
minute, and you didn't come to the anniversary mass this year?
No, there was
Shit,
something
no.
else going on.
I am stunned and
Yeah.
wounded, sir.
I forget what it was, but there was a conflict in our schedule.
Come for the 31st, and we'll work you in. That's right.
yeah, Mrs. Martin and I hit 30 this year.
That's right.
Right,
that
right.
would be
'Cause
about
you
right.
were just like 8 or 9 months after us.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And we did the what was the dance we did? The slam dance.
Oh, to the Violent Femmes.
Violent
The
Femmes.
Violent
That's right.
Femmes.
That's right.
Yes.
At your wedding. I never
Yes.
forget that. That's right.
I do have a photo of us dancing to the Violent
Do
Femmes.
you really? I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah.
Oh, I will. Yes, please remind me before you guys.
I've got a photo
depart.
of now. It might not be to the Violent Femmes, but the missus has a photo of us out on the dance floor with Mr. Mullins down in
Gregor Mendel. Yes,
Gregor Mendel.
that's
Yes,
right. Yeah,
yes, Gregor.
exactly. Yeah.
I forgot. I couldn't remember his code name. there
That
for a
was
moment.
yeah,
Yes.
because my eldest was there. She was a little bitty thing. She was just a year, and she ended up breaking my grandfather's watch at that. I don't think I've told you guys that.
Oh no,
Oh.
I don't know this.
My grandfather's watch that I wore at our wedding, I would wear it for special occasions, and
Right.
and I wore it for your wedding. And she was less than a year, and she was kind of funky. So I handed it to her, and she snaps it. It's still can't wear it, but it's still in my drawer. I've got it
You
it
know,
saved.
they
but,
have
yeah.
companies that'll fix that.
I know I need to do that.
What did
That-
she break?
this has reminded me.
Just
Yeah.
the pins.
Yeah, just the
or-
pin on the
Oh,
bottom.
no,
Oh, that's-
Oh, a band? No, that's
Band,
dirt-
yeah.
that's dirt
I
cheap
got
to fix.
pins over here on my desk. You can
Well,
have.
it's the piece that the pin fixed into. That's what snapped.
Oh,
Okay.
So yeah, that
Oh,
needs-
that
Well,
can
they'll
be
just put a new
glued
band
or-
on.
need to do something about that. It's been in my drawer for so long. I
nothing
think,
else.
oh,
Turn it into a pocket watch.
I love old watches. I really.
But yeah, it was my grandfather's. Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if you guys remember because you were all there. Of course, you were videotaping Marcus
Okay.
up in the.
I believe
you
you.
don't remember, I know, but you were up in the choir loft videotaping the whole thing, and I thank you for that. Her Majesty thanks you
Yeah.
for that too.
Especially since I taped over your bachelor party, I believe.
Yes, you
That
did. Thank
story?
God for that.
yes,
That's for
that,
sure.
that's what he's really thanking you for.
Yes, that was very necessary.
Yes, that's very much so. Videotaping those days, folks.
But
But, yeah.
I mean, I've started.
We're the first of the having the recorded evidence, I guess, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
would be right. Yeah, that's
a
correct.
word of warning to any of our millennial / Z alpha children, if you find a VHS cassette in a drawer, just throw it away.
Especially if it's unlabeled.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
throw it
Lord,
away.
God,
Do
you guys.
not watch it.
Well, there's that, and don't go through the files on our computers.
Yes.
Yes, just wipe the hard drives.
Yes,
That's right.
wipe the
hard
drive.
So that's what we're
Well,
expecting.
Erase the.
For children, in other words, we have to decide which child of ours is going to go through when we die
Yes.
and wipe our hard drives.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
no,
And
see,
not look at anything.
no, see, that's the kind of thing that
Ridiculous.
the Brotherhood is for.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I see. Okay.
yes, so my
Now
very
we'll
good-
look at it first.
Yeah, obviously.
No, no, no.
of
That's,
course.
that's the key. That's why you don't want anybody in the Brotherhood. Don't look at it. Just have the children throw it away or wipe it.
So the pastor, he's got a pact with one of our mutual friends that when word comes along that he has passed or is about to, that he has got to get to the rectory and get rid of certain items.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Including
not-
the browser history.
We hear about that a lot.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of a
Yes.
cliche.
The browser
you know.
history.
Yeah, delete the browser
well,
history.
actually, for him, it's not the browser history. There are
There's
certain,
actual toys.
there are certain items that actually have an innocent story behind them,
but could be taken wrong.
but would be taken
Oh,
wrong.
oh yeah, I
Yes.
understand.
They don't. Well, then those are the things you need to put in the casket with him,
Right.
especially if it's
You're
an open
amazing,
casket.
comparator. Yes.
All right. Well, that was
Wow.
an
That was an
awesome bourbon break that went.
Might be the longest we've done. You know, we keep,
No, I don't think it's the longest, but it's up there.
it's
up
keep,
there.
we keep we
Yeah.
keep working with
Well,
that.
I have to add one note to this.
Yes,
Oh, please.
Go ahead.
Y'all were talking about who was married first. If the emperor is a year behind Francis, then I do believe that makes me the first one
You
married.
would be
out of the
correct.
Yes,
So,
'cause
yes.
so it,
it
would
was
not
at
be
my.
seen as at Francis's apartment.
That is
Uh-huh.
correct. My first apartment. You guys remember that because
Yes.
that's where we ended up back at after the infamous me throwing up underneath
The overpass on
the overpass on
264.
264. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where we were at the time.
Uh-huh.
Back in the day. Yeah, that I was his best man at that Justice of the Peace event. What year was that, Cajun? 80. It had to be 88 because that's when I moved in there. 89. Maybe?
Yeah.
Well,
88 to 89.
I
Yeah.
don't know. You don't remember the date. Wise of
I
you,
don't
sir.
remember the date.
Wise of you,
What,
sir.
That was 4 weddings ago. Come on now. Why would I remember that?
Absolutely.
one
Well,
date?
I don't remember the date. I was there, of course.
It
and,
had to be
I
89
had
at the
more practice
latest
than all of y'all.
because
I think it was 89 because we
Mhm.
were going up to Novi for the mini conventions during 89. That was probably our biggest year. 89 and 90 is when we did quite a bit of that.
Yes.
Now,
did,
how
yes.
how long did
Yeah,
that
that would
first?
have been 88 probably then.
Yeah, I moved in September of 88.
Now, how long did that first one last?
A little over 7 years.
was it
Okay.
that long? I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. I know we came out to your place several times. That's after we were married, so that was a long time ago.
Well, I mean, he's always looking for the next ex Mrs. Cajun.
Oh, how Jurassic Park!
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly.
That's the fantastic thing about that. Yeah.
All right. Super cool. So a final
So
verdict.
circle us back to Clint here.
All right, real quick though, a final verdict on Bakers.
Oh,
Awesome.
Well worth the price, certainly.
Yeah.
I like the
Very-
higher proof.
Yeah.
Usually that can give me a headache, but I really worked through blooming that this time around. Really liked that a lot.
Yeah, but-
It was smoother than I expected with that high proof.
Yes.
Not exceptionally high
The
proof, but-
aging
Now,
makes
what-
it very nice and smooth. And again, the Cajun, his observations of caramel, vanilla,
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Perfect.
that. Very
Yeah.
much so.
So
Now,
very, very tasty.
Now, a curious thing: what are you using to make your balls so big?
I have a couple of different types of ice molds.
Really?
Exercise.
I don't have the same type of mold that Cajun has.
See, that's the
Okay.
one. In case you need to send us that on
We
our
need to-
secure channel, because I've got some plastic ones that are okay, but I like
Yes.
what he has better.
Yes.
Well,
We
I've
need to
been
get
looking
some.
at the new machine that's coming out.
Yes. Now
perfectly
that
clear.
is not out yet.
No,
is the machine that makes spherical ice.
Oh.
Yeah.
The
And they're
ice
perfectly
makers
clear.
are very common.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they,
yeah.
They
We got
make
one
more
from
like
in-laws.
a nugget
Yeah.
style.
And
ice.
Cajun has one of those that he keeps right there
Yeah,
in the
so
front. My
they're
in-laws just got
excellent.
one.
Yeah,
It's a cool little thing,
yeah.
but it's not the
But
same.
nobody's. It's not really out there yet to make what they call craft ice.
Yeah.
Well, you can get that in LG refrigerators.
But the refrigerator, but
Yeah.
the little
Really? I didn't know
countertop
that.
style maker's not there yet.
Because
No.
we're going to
Yeah,
be
for the
looking for a new
balls.
refrigerator. What we have now, the configuration is just not enough
yes,
for
we
us.
have the same refrigerator.
Yeah,
and Mrs. Robert desperately would like to get rid of.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to happen.
She wants a French door.
French door, I
Same
recommend.
thing.
I recommend.
Cajun
French
has the
door.
right one that I like. Probably the best. Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of we need to come.
Cajun,
go there.
how wide is that? Because that looks wider than a standard refrigerator.
I don't know off the top of my head. As far as I know, it's a standard width for French doors like that with freeze on the bottom.
Really? Because it
But
seems
I would
wider.
not recommend a Panasonic fridge.
Oh, really? Okay, that's what you have because
No,
I've really liked
the stove, the fridge, the dishwasher. I've had trouble with all of them.
No
Interesting.
kidding.
Within 2 years'
Good to
time
know.
of buying them new, they've all given me headaches.
Interesting.
Good to know that.
I had
because,
somebody complain about the Samsung refrigerators as well.
Yeah.
yeah, her brother has one.
I'm sorry, the
that's been
Samsung.
problematic.
Yeah, the Samsung, not Panasonic.
Oh, okay.
Panasonic,
Okay,
the
so,
Samsung.
wow.
Yeah,
I
because
got a Samsung package. Everything was Samsung when I built
well,
that.
Her Majesty's brother has one of those, and it seems to have problems all the time.
Which is interesting because Samsung usually
do.
is known for quality.
That's right. I mean, it's Japanese.
Not in the appliances anymore.
Korean.
Korean.
Oh, it's a Korean. I didn't
Samsung is
realize.
Korean.
Yeah, South
Oh,
Korean.
I was trying to give Martin an opportunity to talk about Bjorn and
Bjorn,
his,
no,
his
you will
Japanese
find
adventure.
that primarily most appliances now are either Korean or Chinese import into the U.S.
Well, Korean is usually spot on, though. They're very, very good
Yeah.
quality in most cases.
Here's the thing to watch out for with a French door style freezer on the bottom refrigerator. I love them, but there is like a defrost drain tube,
Mm-hmm.
and if it gets blocked by even like a little tiny piece of paper or plastic, it will back up. And as the defrost cycle goes, you will end up with a puddle in the floor
Interesting.
Oh, really?
because it will freeze and then melt and leak into the floor and then refreeze again.
Oh,
So if you have a French door fridge and you see ice in the bottom below the basket part, that's what's going on.
when you say French door, you're talking about side by side?
A side by
It's
side.
a side by side
With a bottom freezer.
The bottom freezer, which I
Gotcha.
love
Yeah.
because you want to be able to see. You're in the fridge more than you're in the freezer.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So you want to be able to see the things on the fridge shelves,
Yeah.
and you get the ice maker in the door, and it takes up the least amount of interior.
Yeah, and your
space.
freezer is
out.
essentially a chest style freezer that
Yes,
the
Yes.
door
and,
pulls
it
out.
just pulls out.
That's what we
anymore.
want.
That's
'Cause ours
what
is
I
a
want.
full side by
You know,
side.
I'll stay.
Pain in the ass.
Yes.
I went with the I believe it's KitchenAid commercial.
Yeah.
So I
Always heard
have
good things about that.
I have a separate freezer and fridge right next to each other. So it's like French doors the way I've got it set up.
Yeah.
But now my fridge, the entirety of the front of it's glass and lighted 24/7 so I could see what I've got.
Yeah.
The freezer isn't, but they're separate 19.8 feet units,
Cubic feet.
cubic feet. And I love that.
So yeah, that is what you want to watch out for. Make sure that little drain
Mhm.
tube in the back does not get blocked, because even like a tiny bit of plastic off of a bag
Mm-hmm.
or
Right.
anything
We'll screw it.
will block that up, and that'll freeze, and when it defrosts, all that water will come out of it and pool in the bottom
Mhm.
Of the freezer unit.
of the freezer unit. Yeah.
Now,
See.
you getting leaking into the floor? Is that a worry?
When that then defrosts,
Yeah.
that will melt, and then it comes over the edge and leaks into the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the part that's really the concern, because you know, you don't want your floor to get
Yeah.
waterlogged and have your refrigerator drop through your floor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so if you ever notice,
hmm
even if you don't get water in the floor, if you ever notice
Ice in the bottom.
ice in the bottom, you need to call somebody, get that drain tube unplugged, and then you'll be fine.
And there's your PSA for the day.
yeah.
Snakes and Otters, bringing you consumer information.
Yes.
So again, that I think did make it the longest bourbon break in history.
Yes, if we include that as part of,
Once we
I mean,
include
Rabbit hole, rabbit hole.
Francis and
rabbit
I
hole.
even took a bathroom break in the middle of that.
This is true. That's right.
So
Let's go back to
back to Clint Eastwood.
Yes. So you had something you wanted to bring up, and I had something I wanted to
So
bring
I
up.
will defer to Robert.
oh, okay.
Let's let Robert go with his point.
I
and
hope he
then-
remembers.
I actually I do.
Oh, good.
You know, that's not always a guarantee. Not always. So you guys know I am big on context.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that I find interesting about Clint Eastwood's move to directing is that, one, he was a big name. A lot
Yeah.
of
By that time, he was a star.
Yeah. a lot of actors who become, and this is a two-part thing actually, but a lot of actors who become directors are ones that they're really B-list actors. The best place you can find this, an example of this, are Trek actors.
Oh, Jonathan Frakes is an amazing director. You're
Well,
right.
I mean, you've got Jonathan Frakes, you've got
LeVar Burton. did it?
Roxanne Dawson.
Yes, yes.
She's a huge director.
That's right. She does. That's
And
become,
it's mostly television.
it's become her
Yes.
career.
Yeah.
Post Voyager. Yeah.
But you know, you see these people who you know made a good chunk of money
yeah.
on you know their meager acting skills. I mean, you know, Roxanne Dawson, Jonathan Frakes,
The TV actors.
they're
Yeah.
TV actors. You know, they're not out there that are going to win huge accolades as dramatic artists, which is fine. They did a fine job. I'm not denigrating their acting
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But they're smart enough to recognize I've got a window here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
for the
true.
female actresses, that is important because
yeah.
their window is much shorter.
Yeah. Image is everything.
Image is everything.
Unfortunately.
Whereas Clint, at the height, really not even the height, because as we saw,
Yeah.
he continued to ascend. But
As
you
an
know,
actor. Yeah.
you know, by today's standards, you know, you would have expected his acting career to just start sliding down because they're flash in the pan nowadays. It seems the careers just don't last as long. It seems, but he managed to leverage that box office bankability into this creative control,
Yeah.
which is very unusual in the sense that he kept on acting. You don't really
Yeah,
see that. as
Most of them,
often.
they decide to leave acting and become the directors.
Right, and again, that's partially because, well, you know, they're B-list act. I mean, nothing wrong with being a B-list actor. There are more B-list actors than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're the heart and soul
I mean,
of the industry.
that would be quite a thing to aspire to. Be that
Right.
character actor, small part, playing the government official in every.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I tell you, Rene Aubergenois was one of the greatest of those, and
Yeah.
that's what he
Yeah.
called himself. He says, "That's my bread and butter. I'm a character
Oh.
actor."
The guy, oh shoot, he I can't remember his name, but he's played the baddie in so many late '90s, 2000s movies. Heavy-set older guy, reddish dark hair with, you know, the big glasses. I can think of his face and see him in.
I was going to say, throw us a role, we might be able to take.
but I
this.
can't think of any of the specific ones. But you've seen him in
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
a dozen things,
Sure.
playing the same kind of guy. But anyways,
Well, Brian Dennehy was good with that.
he was, but
Yeah,
he had some really good meaty roles.
He did. That's right.
He wasn't a one-note bad guy,
Right.
which is a testament to his own skills.
Sure. Yeah. He did very well with First Blood, in particular. That was one of his
especially
best
that, yes.
best roles.
And of
yeah.
course, we talked about him in Silverado. when we did the
Absolutely.
movies
Yeah, and that was a
episode,
few years after that. Yeah.
So there's that. I think that's especially interesting that this A-list actor became an A-list director.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the other thing is he also did this at a time when we were moving from. We've talked about this as far as the television stuff goes,
Yep.
as well as the movies. When we went from the fanciful, and I use that in term, you know, in the broadest sense, in the term
Yeah.
of the epics that were
Right.
sent, the King Arthur stuff, or the biblical epics, or just the
Greatest story ever told,
Yeah.
King of Kings,
all of those things that were big
Ben-Hur.
budget, big cast kind of things.
Yeah.
Cast of thousands.
Yeah, Covatus and a few other things. Yeah.
And we transitioned to the real, the nitty gritty, the cop stuff.
Yeah, the Vietnam War changed all of our
Cinema
approaches.
verite.
Yeah,
Right.
very
So-
much so. Yeah, that realism.
Well, and that's the thing. We went from these things that were the fantastical,
Yeah,
as opposed, and sometimes the farcical, when you think about the country shows that got canceled all at once.
sure. Yeah, the Rural Purge. Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about that. Yeah, Gomer Pyle and
exactly,
the
all of
Beverly
the-
Hillbillies.
Petticoat Junction.
Petticoat
Green
Junction.
Acres,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yada, yada, yada.
There was a definite change in 1970 thereabouts,
Right.
and forward. That's when they
Right.
decided.
And very few things survived that, and the ones that did were more modern set.
They sometimes
like
reinvented.
Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie. They were like the last gasp of that sort of
optimistic,
yeah.
unrealistic. type
So
thing.
he makes this transition to director in a time that is perfect for it, because he's looking for that creative control, and he's doing the visual version of what we all aspire, what those of us who are writing fiction aspire to.
Yeah.
To tell stories.
Yeah.
And he comes to this at a time when the stories of the individual are more important than the stories of the epic, where you're telling a tale that is part mythical.
Yeah.
So
He learns this from Leone, because it's very all those movies. Individualism is very much the way of doing it.
right.
I'm
So
glad
whether
you
he's
brought that up. That's a good point.
the rogue bad guy, the rogue good guy,
Yeah.
there's his characters are not ones. Prior to 1970, most of the good guys, the leads in movies, whether it's male or female, there's no change.
Yeah. They're the white hat guy.
They're the
and that's what he pushed against.
the white hat guy,
when he
or
went
just
to
the
archetypes.
point was the joke. There's a lot of comedies. The point was the
Yeah.
joke, or the point was you are the archetype, so you fit into this mold, and we cannot break the mold.
Oh yeah, John Wayne was very much part of
The
that.
moral lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and now that you mentioned John Wayne too, that's a prime example of a time that it didn't work. See, Wayne directed and funded the Alamo, and it's
Absolutely.
broken
Absolutely,
because
because
it was not a success.
very much so. Yeah, and he
I
had
mean,
John
was
Ford.
financially in the hole bad after he did the Alamo.
I know, and he had John Ford as his advisor for that one. Who knew his business.
But you know what? That's exactly the kind of movie
That's
though,
right.
that they transitioned from, because
That's right.
there's a
It's
historical
about 5 years too
story
late. Yeah,
that is known,
that's right.
and it's one of those things that it's almost myth, and you
Yeah.
can't mess with the myths.
Right.
You can mess with the individual everyman. You can put him through hell
yeah.
and bring him out the other side, either broken or better.
Yeah.
And that's the 70s. You can end up with him broken.
Yeah.
You could never end up with your protagonist as a broken, changed, and maybe somewhat
Sure.
where he's better is where he's learned.
Sure, and that's the
But
great.
he's still broken.
That's the great story. Cajun.
You
The
couldn't do that before.
Alamo was 1960. Am I correct?
Yes,
See, that's what I thought. See, this is what
Wayne only directed 2 films in his lifetime. Alamo was his pet project.
That's
that
right.
Was one he was fighting.
That's a
to
shame.
get
I
made.
liked that
The other one he directed was the Green Berets.
That's correct, which had its own political undertones, very
Yes.
much so. That he was making a
Right.
statement with that.
He was showing support for the U.S. soldiers in Vietnam. at the
That's
time.
correct. Yeah, it was a different animal almost.
Yeah.
I think the Alamo was probably 5 years too late. If you'd have done that in '55, it would have had a different resonation than it did, because at 60, with Kennedy's, and I hate to put it down to that, but with Kennedy's election, everything changed. The Eisenhower days were gone, and things were at the
Well,
beginning
the
of a
Kennedy
cultural change,
assassination in '60,
which is 3 years later. That's correct.
I think it's the assassination, not
That
not the
changed a
election.
lot of it, but
Yeah.
I think it. I mean, we could talk a long time about that. I think a lot of it started with Kennedy. And here's an
The guys in
example.
Camelot.
Yeah, because prior to 1960, men wearing hats was a common thing.
Yes.
And after that,
Kennedy refused to wear a hat.
Kennedy refused to wear a hat, and it changed the freaking culture to the point where it's still weird for men to wear hats in many. It's
Other than a ball cap, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's just a thing, and that's just there were
which we all rail against, and it is
Yes,
one of the things we rebel
Sure,
love
against.
absolutely.
hats.
It's
I have a hat
Well, unless
collection.
you're out in more of the western regions now.
Now, that's correct.
Yeah.
There's
The
still
hat is still well and alive in many, many styles of popularity.
yeah, but in back here in
It's almost part of the costume, though.
It's on, yeah. I mean, Cajun's right. It's kind of
No,
seen
it's
as
part
a
of the culture. It's
Texas,
not a costume.
Arizona
Hat out
thing.
west is never a costume.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
and it just shows the difference in the cultural
I
diversity.
I use the word costume, but I didn't mean it as something that people put on.
yeah, it's
You know.
a cultural
I'm trying
thing.
to avoid all the hate mail from out west Texas. And
I'll take the hate mail because it means somebody's listening to the damn
Montana.
show.
Yes, Texas and Arizona listeners, you can direct your ire at Robert.
Robert.
Robert at snakesandotters.com.
The rest of us, solidarity. We love hats.
Oh, we do.
I love hats. I wore a hat today.
He
he's
did.
the
He
only
did.
one
He
that
wore
wore
his
it.
hat.
Now I'm wearing a toque today.
Yeah,
but,
you're wearing a slacker hat.
Yeah.
He's Yukon Cornelius.
Yes,
folks.
I am.
mean,
It's
very
very
much so.
Seattle of you.
It is.
Yes.
But
But anyways, the point though is
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
things changed, and he became a director at the
he did-
right
Yeah,
time.
he rode that wave
Yeah.
to where the stories he wanted to tell were stories that he could
Well,
get approved and greenlit
Uh-huh.
as a director.
That's right. And
Again,
it was
a very, very individualistic, very small.
it was
frame.
even though Malpaso was still doing all the work at this point, it was a slow burn because he did all those Dirty Harry movies. You know, he didn't
Yeah.
direct any of those.
he didn't direct him, but Malpaso was a producer.
Correct. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a transition point because by the time Pale Rider comes around in '83, the transition is complete.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything that he doesn't produce and direct.
yeah,
Yeah. Again, other than
a few select.
And he
Unforgiven?
in the line of fire.
In the
he-
line
or
of
in the
fire.
line of fire. Yeah.
In
well,
the line of fire.
I was going to say White Hunter Black Heart might be one.
He directed
I
that.
think he directed that one. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a few there's a few
Very few
oddballs.
things.
There are very few things. at
So,
this point.
but something you said, yeah, again, this idea that he's directing at just the right moment.
Yes.
Because again, you take something like Josie Wales,
yeah.
untraditional Western.
Oh, Wayne disliked it at first because
Wayne disliked a lot of stuff Clint was doing.
that's correct
because he said this is not what America was about.
Well, it changed a few things. The Confederate is the hero,
Yes.
and more to the point is the Union is the villain.
Yeah.
See, because we'd had those mishmash movies.
Yeah.
Wayne did The Undefeated with Brock Hudson, where the Confederates and the Union team up, and also Chuck did the Major Dundee with Richard Harris,
Yeah.
where the Confederate and the Union team up. But having the villain be the Union, Wayne had it. He hated that.
Oh yeah.
He thought that
But
was.
it is
Well,
a
that's
very
totally two different times of growing
That's right.
up.
It was
also.
the tension
Yeah.
of the
I mean,
of
when
those two
Wayne
visions.
grew up, it's a black and white. You got to win it, you got to lose it. Simple
Well,
as
that's
that,
right,
black
and
white.
it was very
When
simple
Clint
for
came
him.
along, was getting out there, becoming a young man. Things wasn't as black and white as they used to be.
That's right, and Josie Wales was a cultural reflection of the time thing. Maybe all that we've been told isn't always this way.
I mean, again, Josie Wales is a very individual story
Oh yeah,
about
it's-
what happened to
to
this
this man.
one particular man, and it's not the ideas of plantations and slavery and all that
Lost
that's
cause.
driving it.
yeah, exactly.
it's
There's
very
none of that
much-
there. Yeah,
It's
that's
very much Josie's individual experience as a Missouri farmer and
Right.
what was done to him and his family.
And this
And
is why I
seeing-
liken him
seeing
to.
history through that lens
Yes.
of just that one person.
yeah, and it was his way of saying that maybe all that you've sold was not the complete story. Let's try adding other
Right.
things here because
Yeah.
there's so much diversity here.
Well, and this is why I liken him to the visual version of the writer, is because he's literally telling a story. He's not telling the story.
Right.
Oh, that's very good. That's
And I think
exactly
that's
right.
a good
That's-
distinction.
That's a very good distinction. Yeah.
That's what was kind of lost on Wayne
Yes.
Wayne always told the story. It was
Yes.
always had a bigger
big
canvas
story.
than the story itself.
And that's all movie making prior to 1970.
Well,
you think about
that's
it.
right. Yeah, they're making universal statements.
Right, and that's
Trying
not a bad
to.
thing. I'm not
No,
saying
no,
that.
it's
I'm
just
not
a
saying
different
that's a bad
approach.
thing.
Exactly.
It's a different approach.
It's a different approach. It's the story.
That's why
Because we need movies that are the story
Yeah.
just as much as we need
absolutely,
movies that are
and in many
a
respects,
story.
we've lost a little of that.
Wow.
Yes, we have.
Wow, that is a Snakes and Otters cultural interpretation that I think is very valid. I
Yeah,
Very
really
much
love
so,
that.
yeah.
I really 200 episodes. Here we've got it distilled.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's about a story. Sometimes it's about the
The
story.
right. And every the story contains multiple a stories.
Oh yeah, and Wayne was
it's
very
just drilling down.
Yeah.
And it's going from the that overarching morality tale
Mhm.
to okay, we get this good, bad, black, white, black hat, white hat kind of stuff, but it's like when we're preaching from the pulpit.
Yeah,
The Gospels are great. The biblical readings are fantastic. That's the story.
right.
The homily should be a story
Yeah,
in the
meld-
sense that
Melding the A and the
what does this mean to you in the pew
That's
or
right.
you in the movie
That's the-
theater
that's
seat?
the
That's
A
what
story.
Clint was
So the
master
you
of.
story.
Yeah.
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 Oh, this is very
It goes
good. Yeah.
even
Yeah.
further, you know,
The A story, the story, and the U story.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then Clint's the master of that messy middle
Yeah.
Well,
story.
And I don't want to disparage Wayne too much to say
No, no,
because,
no.
because for example, the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a very morally ambiguous story.
Uh-huh.
It's a very gray area because, as you know, not to spoil it, but God, if you haven't seen it, smack a
I mean, it is the progenitor of Josie Wales.
Oh,
It
very
really
much so.
is.
It's about
It's
it's
a
about
direct
one of the heroes
thematic
doing
line.
something very bad and very illegal and immoral
Yeah.
for the right reason.
Yeah.
And there was a time that would never have gotten past the studio system.
Yeah, any earlier than it did. That's correct. They would have
Right.
never allowed this moral ambiguity. In fairness, Lee Marvin was such an amazingly vile villain in that movie as Liberty Valance that's kind of softened that. Wait a minute, we're going to murder this guy.
I believe that was Jimmy Stewart, wasn't it?
Jimmy Stewart was the hero. He was the one
hero, yeah.
that kept his hands clean. Wayne, as Tom Donathan, kills Liberty Valance. He's the real man who shoots Liberty Valance to save Jimmy Stewart because he was inept.
What we would call today the anti-hero.
Yeah, very much so. He does the dirty deed to save the other guy to his own detriment because by doing that, Wayne
He's the Punisher?
He loses the girl to the guy he saved. I mean,
Yeah.
the immoral difficulties and grayness and complications of that movie is the reason it's considered one of the best
It's
movies ever
funny
made.
how
Well, the shooters is not much difference in that regard.
Very
either.
true.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
He's
That's
dying
I
at the end of
love
his
the
life, and he does something that may be good for society, but probably wouldn't fall into morally right.
Oh yeah, because
Well-
he essentially commits suicide by
gunfight.
by
Well,
gunfight.
not only that, he takes out 3 people he considers that as not good for society.
That's correct. Yeah. So you see, there's a
Well,
lot, lots of moral ambiguity there.
that's visited in Unforgiven.
And it might be that might be the
Yeah.
preeminent version of that. And I think
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood really tapped into that, realized those are the good stories to tell where there's
Well-
not always the white hat, black hat
it's
version.
funny how much
Some of it, but
Wayne
not always.
and Eastwood parallel,
Yeah.
but just it's like, John, you're not getting everything that Clint's doing,
Yeah.
but
And Clint is
it's okay.
Yeah, and Clint
It's
is
okay. It's not that far from where you were,
It's really not.
but yes, I get
Well,
that
I
it
would-
feels different for you.
I go back to the versus a with a lot of the stuff that the John Wayne era of movie making proposes. And Francis used the word. It's the archetype. This is what we aspire to, even in something like The Man Who Shot Josie or Liberty Valance. It's going to be something that's like, oh yeah, we recognize this needs to be done. A rabid dog needs to be put down.
Yeah,
but I don't want to be that guy that's the rabid dog, or putting down the rabid dog. Whereas when you look at something like Unforgiven, it's a similar theme, but I think that the guys in that movie, and I would have said this at the time when I was much younger, they're more identifiable. You can identify with those guys, I think, a lot better. And
so what you're saying is Clint's characters are more morally direct.
I don't know that necessarily. That may be true, but I don't know if that was my
They've worked
point.
through the moral dilemma and just come out and are comfortable with where they fit.
Well, they're not necessarily comfortable with it, but they're willing to live with the consequences.
They understand living with the consequences.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that the John Wayne movies that we were talking about, Liberty Valance and what have you, The Shootist, don't do that. But again, it's a different time.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of Wayne films where that moral decision is just made in advance.
Yes, in sales, we would call that assuming the sale.
Yeah. Again, something like El Dorado or that trilogy of the drunken sheriff that Wayne is helping.
Yes.
El Dorado, Rio Lobo, Rio Bravo. He just kind of makes those decisions in advance, whereas the Clint characters are more agonized.
Yes.
But they come out in the same place.
And with the Clint characters, especially in Unforgiven, I think this is what makes it one of the best Westerns ever, is that the outcome of the decisions to go after the men who performed those heinous deeds is not a given.
Yeah. It
is not a guarantee. And as we see, not everybody comes back from that.
Well, yeah, only when Will Money, Clint's character, becomes the darkest he can become is there a resolution.
And that's the thing.
Darkness is the only thing that resolves the issue.
And it's with great reluctance.
It is. That's
Whereas
the tension. That's right.
Far too often in that good versus bad, black versus white kind of style
it's
that
too
Wayne
easy
is,
a decision
it's
to
too
make.
easy. It's like, well, of course I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do. There's no agony over the decision.
Well, sometimes, and you're right, often it is.
Not to the same degree.
Liberty Valance is a good example, again, of that very thing, because Tom Donathan, Wayne's character, absolutely hates that he did this later. And he tells Jimmy Stewart, I saved you, and I lost everything because of it. From this morally reprehensible murder, essentially, because he's shooting the guy from the side without anybody knowing it. And Wayne considered Liberty Valance one of his best films for all the right reasons, because it was something you almost couldn't get away with in those days.
Right.
That moral ambiguity. Whereas by the time Clint comes around, it's become standard.
It's what we wanted.
Well,
and you're exactly right.
And the moral
we grew up to the point where we want those stories.
Well, and it's the moral ambiguity is the exploration of not just the act, but with the repercussions of the act.
And the motivations, too.
And the motivation, all of it.
All of the above.
And I would say this, because I don't want to sound like I'm denigrating Liberty Valance or The Shootist or any of these kinds of movies where this.
Sure, I understand.
I'm not.
We have great respect for them, yes.
Because they're great cinema.
They're great, yeah.
But with Clint Eastwood, because he comes on the scene as a director and producer at just the right time.
Right.
And he's got the vision to tell these kind of individualistic stories dealing with the larger themes. He's able to take it a step further, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing, because as Martin said, the decision to do the bad thing isn't made ahead of time because it's just something that's got to be done.
Yeah.
It's like, because very realistically, and in Unforgiven, they go through this. They agonize over whether or not these old men are going to go do this thing.
Yeah, because they recognize that if they leave to go what they do, they're going to be committing murder, and they know it.
Well, and it's not just that. So some of them have to leave family to do it.
Right. Morgan Freeman, yeah.
For Clint Eastwood, he's got to break a promise to his dead wife.
That's right, yeah.
To me, that's the quintessential image of that movie, is him talking to his wife at the grave under the tree.
Oh yeah.
That's the image when I think of that movie. That's the only image that I mean, it's not the only.
Yeah.
That's the
It's one of the
primary
biggest
image.
images. Yeah.
And that I think is the genius, because that's the story.
Yeah.
It's the breaking of the promise, not the tracking down.
right.
It's the decision to break the promise.
It's interesting you say that, because that is a direct turning on its head of Wayne's own movie, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Is that where you're going?
No, I was just going to say that.
Captain Nathan Brittles sits at his wife's grave and explains why he does what he does.
Yeah.
But it's about being the
Which
hero
is very
that he's
similar
doing.
to The Searchers.
Yes,
Very
because
similar
he
to
makes
The
that
Searchers,
promise.
Because he goes down a very dark path,
Right.
but for this good reason.
Right.
So the
Which is
what-
considered-
where it ends up is basically the difference between Wayne and Eastwood
Yeah.
and the stories they're telling is Wayne almost always represents a legitimate authority
yes,
making
yes.
these decisions,
Okay.
whereas Eastwood usually represents someone being squeezed or abused by a legitimate authority,
Okay.
making the decisions to right the moral world again. When
Both
you
of
think
them
of
do the
Josie
same
Wales, again, he's trying to right the world into a moral place where everybody gets along.
Whereas Ethan Edwards is trying to do something very different. He's representing civilization
Yeah.
that is going
Yeah.
to right this
But again,
wrong that the
you know,
savage has done to
right.
him,
So-
as it's written. Yeah.
So again, in things like El Dorado, Rio Bravo, Rio Lobo, he's representing legitimate authority, the Union, a sheriff, whatever.
Horse Soldiers was the same way. Yeah.
Trying to right the world into a moral place as this legitimate authority. Clint's overviewer is legitimate authority is part of the problem.
Right,
Oh,
because
Josie Wales is perfect.
Josie
for
Wales.
that. And
Well,
so is High Plains Drifter.
in Unforgiven, these guys do this heinous act, but because it's done to prostitutes, nobody gives a damn.
Right.
Right, yeah.
The legitimate authority of the sheriff and Gene Hackman
Is the problem.
is the problem.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because Little
here's-
Bill is probably one of the most
Little Bill.
reprehensible
Yeah.
characters.
So here, again, and so Clint's overview is this man in the middle, this everyman, is the one who needs to put the world back on a moral course.
Interesting you say that, because he's taking the everyman of High Noon,
Yeah.
which Wayne detested, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so, because the sheriff shouldn't have that moral ambiguity. And at the time, he was right. High Noon, the authority is the everyman. In this case, in Unforgiven, authority is the villain for the everyman.
And Wayne hated High Plains Drifter.
Mm-hmm.
He
Because
did. Yeah, that's
said,
right.
The American person is not like this. These sniveling, coward people in High Plains Drifter.
Which is
And
the
High
inhabitants of
Noon.
the town, Lago. Yeah,
Yeah. where they're
they're the villains.
Yeah, so
essentially, corporately,
when
they're
you
a villain.
see the John Wayne films that he's making, again, the Rio Lobo, Rio Bravo, the townspeople come to his aid. They're heroic.
Yeah.
They don't want these, whatever the bad guy is, taking over.
Ironically, Eastwood himself would do that very theme with Pale Rider in between.
Yes.
You see, so if
Pale Rider.
he's
But
recognizing that
that's
there is.
another prime example of
Yeah.
generational difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When
Absolutely,
Wayne was
yes.
younger, towns would come together and stand behind each other in a
That's
That's
crisis.
why they hated High Noon,
Later
because
on, people will say, "Hey, not my monkey, not my circus."
Well, and partially it's also, I think, it's a consequence of the kinds of things that is Cajun pointed out, it's generational difference, but the kind of thing that Wayne did. All of his movies were of a certain, not just certain genre, because he didn't just do westerns, but a certain type of story.
Yeah.
Because again, it goes back to that, right versus wrong.
yeah, he was very
And-
deliberate in what he picked too.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about his character in The Longest Day. The D-Day invasion,
Right.
where he's the current. To me, that was almost like one of his Western characters
Sure.
set in World
He-
War
He
II.
was very,
Yeah.
he's very protective of his reputation.
Well,
as
and
an
of his
actor.
people.
Of his
Of
people,
his
too.
people.
Very
That's the
much
thing.
so.
Because remember, when he comes to the town where the paratroopers were shot as they came down and they were hung in the trees, and he has that visceral reaction about them being left there.
Yeah, the one officer hadn't gotten him down. He said,
Yeah.
"Get him down right now."
Yeah.
That's right.
I think that's not that Clint wouldn't have done a scene like that, but because he just didn't. That I can't imagine that kind of scene in Kelly's Heroes, for instance.
Right, yeah, which was very
But it's a different kind of movie. But I mean, the kinds of movies that Wayne did, I think, more often than not, showed and highlighted this is what we aspire to.
Absolutely. He was very aspirational in his approach all the time.
Whereas
Clint is
not
not.
that he doesn't do that.
Sure, he does sometimes, yeah, but not.
But
That wasn't his norm.
It's
but what he but it's like, yeah, we may aspire to that, but most of us are living here in the muck.
we got to survive first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
It's very existential. We got to survive first, then we can worry about what we're aspiring to.
Yeah.
I think
I've
Emperor
got-
has something, and then I want to wrap up.
That I do.
Yeah,
As a
'cause
matter-
we're-
as a matter of fact, I want to cover a part of Eastwood's life that we haven't touched yet.
Yeah,
This
And
ought to be
his-
interesting.
And his commercial success.
yeah.
The top two commercial successes that he ever did were in 78 and 80.
Yeah.
Any which way you can, any which way
Every
you
which way,
lose.
every which way blues.
And-
Yeah,
and
those
the
are his
Son-
biggest movies.
The
Yeah,
the Sandra Locke years.
Yeah, comedy film Bronco Billy. and-
Exactly. All those.
Sudden
Yeah.
Impact. I mean, when he
Well,
had,
but those comedy films, especially, were not critically approved.
Oh no!
I mean, they were
critically
like,
they
what
were
in the-
they were panned.
What in the
Yeah,
hell
but-
is he doing?
But people loved him.
But
people
they,
loved
they
them.
sold.
well, yeah,
sold.
absolutely. I mean, every
Oh,
which
I
way but
remember
loose.
my old man laughing his arse off at him.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No,
yeah.
they're hilarious movies. But when you look at the critics always pan that kind of stuff. They hate
Yeah,
it.
lowbrow.
It was kind of
Lowbrow humor, but it
But
was
you know what? Real life is made up of that stuff
it is.
sometimes.
And
Yeah,
so-
and he dabbled with that
Yeah.
for what 6-8 years maybe,
Not
and then
10,
he
I
kind of
think.
Well, and the window those films are in
Was
is an
78,
economically
80s,
depressed
and what have
time.
you,
It
yeah.
made people laugh during a
It
time
did.
of.
well, this was the time of Smokey and the Bandit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All those
this
kinds of
mindless fun.
Exactly.
Which it had
Yeah,
its
Escape-
place.
it's a
escapism.
fun movie with an orangutan and him beating up on people.
Yes.
and it made us forget about Jimmy Carter.
Exactly.
and
And
long
20
gas
Arab
lines.
air embargoes.
and 20% interest rates,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
gas
yeah.
prices
And that's,
quadrupling.
it's
Yes.
very reflective of that.
Yeah.
And by the time 83 or 84 comes along, he's back to Pale Rider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is back
Uh-huh.
somewhat to his roots in many respects. It's essentially High Plains Drifter remade slightly
Yeah.
different.
Well, I think that's a
And those are, I think, post Sandra Locker. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right at the end, anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sudden
yeah,
Impact,
yeah.
I think maybe his last movie with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
quote me exactly on that.
And then Francis Farmer, I guess, is.
Yeah, Francis Farmer
Uh-huh.
he had after that, and I mean his situation. You could.
Yeah, we don't want to even go to his domestic situation.
No.
No,
Yeah, I mean he's been multiply married and multiply associated. Shall
Yes.
we say?
So,
And a
Long-term-
politician. for
long-term
2
part-
years.
oh yes, he was mayor,
I know
mayor
we-
of Carmel, California.
and very
Well,
successfully so.
Carmel by the sea.
by the
Carmel
sea.
by the-
Smaller
By the
area.
sea,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And it's
though
very
I-
successfully
I
so.
want to touch on something. I know we're at the end, but
Real quick, do it.
Francis said something that is incredibly insightful here that
Thank
we've
you.
missed.
Do it.
So you pointed out that the comedies were done at a time, and you both did this, but
Uh-huh.
but you made the secondary connection that the comedies were done at a time when we needed to forget
Yeah. They were escapism.
about the horribleness that was our everyday lives.
Mhm.
That's right,
Yeah.
which we all lived through. I mean,
Right, we all lived.
Oh yeah.
Well, we had just come from Vietnam on the TV every day at dinner time.
Watergate for 2
Watergate.
years.
Yeah,
Yes,
75.
and the Jimmy Carter years, especially the last couple of years, were not fun.
No. Horrible president. Great humanitarian.
Yeah.
we
What,
can find the
You think he was a great president?
Too nice of a guy for that office.
But the other part of that, though, is that by the time you get to 83, 84, he's back to doing that. I don't want to call it philosophical necessarily, but it's that examination of a story again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
what you're saying is basically is that you can gauge the status or condition of a society
Yeah.
based on the kinds of movies that are being made.
Oh, I would think we would agree with that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
truism.
So-
That's
Oh,
very
yeah.
much so. Yeah.
So when that escapist kind of, especially the comedies,
Yeah.
Rambo couldn't have been. First Blood. First
Yes.
Blood, especially, could not have been made in 75 or 76.
Oh hell no.
No.
It takes
no.
81.
But
to
it also,
do.
First
But it was
Blood itself,
absolutely perfect for 81.
Yeah,
but it also
absolutely
could
perfect.
not have been made in 84 or 85
probably not.
No.
because we
Yeah,
were
because-
past that.
That's right, because it was very angsty.
Yes.
And it was very much a story of someone being
Why are
wronged.
Why are we not being accepted?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, and that's a different kind of tale.
Whereas by the
because
time Rambo comes around in 85, it's we're kicking butt and taking names.
right, it is very
Shoot
and
those
so
commies.
right. It shoot the commies.
Yeah.
Well,
we
it's
just
very much
finished-
getting back.
We were just finishing up a Cold War.
Not yet.
We were still in the middle of it.
We were
We
in
were
the
still in the
middle
middle.
of
It
it.
was still a few
Almost
years away.
Yeah, but-
83 was probably its height.
Yeah.
This is when the drop-off letter got written. And,
Rambo. Yeah, I mean,
Rambo was a pushback.
Is
Yeah,
it
this
is a
after
Cold
the
War
day after.
document, but that it contributed to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in certain ways. Whereas other movies like The Day After contributed to that as well in a very far darker
Yeah.
way
Yes.
as well.
So
It's all of the above.
So the whole idea, though, that we turn more introspective and deep comes at a time when we are not necessarily affluent, but when things are going well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Better. Things are going much better than they were just 5 years earlier.
Right.
And it's
But
recognized.
only when it's done in a way that is not tearing everything down.
Yeah.
Because you can be introspective without tearing things down.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're doing it, when you're tearing things down, that's when you have a disconnect between the people who are making those movies, writing those stories, and real bad times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great place to finish. I'm going to forgo the point I was going to make about his relationship with his actors, but generally just to say, hey, lots of actors like working with him.
Oh, yeah. And he had his
Hey-
own peeps too.
Yeah, but I mean,
Joffrey Lewis and several others guys.
yeah,
that were
yeah.
with him.
But even Tim Robbins,
Mm-hmm.
someone who personality,
And
outlook
political.
wise,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very different from Clint.
Yeah.
Loved working with him.
Absolutely, because
You know,
he's
he respected the actors,
Mm-hmm.
treated them well, treated them as equals, and gave them success.
yeah.
they
We're
had-
all working together.
They had great
Yeah.
movies. I mean, some actors, their triumphs are
Mhm.
working with Clint. But this has been,
Bridges of Madison County.
this has been
Oh,
a
yeah.
terrific episode.
we didn't talk about that one.
Hour and 49 minutes.
we didn't even plan it out too much, and we just rolled with it.
Well, I
so-
knew this one here would be very fruitful. I knew
So
it
it
was
was
a lot
awesome.
for us to work.
This was very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agent,
fun.
awesome to have you on by the technology here. The Tascam came to our rescue to have Cajun on. It was awesome
Yeah,
stuff.
it's an absolutely
Oh yeah.
adaptable item that we
Yeah.
have.
Splendiferous.
Yeah, we really do need to work though on we have people who are not in the room making sure they have space to talk.
Yes.
Yep.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yep.
It is. So, anyways,
Francis, what's next, buddy?
We're going to Code of Honor next time here.
Oh.
And actually, Martin, you groan there, but you're the one who has not told us what the quote is.
no, he didn't groan. He was. It was a satisfaction.
Oh, is that what that was? Okay.
Code of
I
Honor.
thought it might have been indigestion there for a
no,
second.
no.
But yeah, we're going to do a Code of Honor,
Mm-hmm.
and this in here is completely cold. Martin has kept
Just
it-
the way I did it last time. I think it worked
Martin
out
has
great
kept
being
it
cold. Yes.
Completely. We didn't preempt anything. We didn't prep anything. We're just going to jump right in, dive in at the deep end. We're going to see whatever the heck he's going to have ready for us, but we know it's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Be here.
We hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes drop every second and fourth Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern, just in time for your morning commute. And every fifth Friday, we drop a special Hoopajube episode. Spread the word we are on all the major platforms, and leave us a review. That helps others find us. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com. Join us next time. Same snake time, same otter channel.